All right, what the fuck's up, guys? Here we go. We have a I think first ever on the channel doing a video like this with a Joe Clamka over here, fucking from Concrete Spew.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Fuck yeah, and actually, I did write down some questions, but I think this is going to turn into a makeshift podcast.
There you go.
Yeah. So actually, what I will bring up first is the obvious start of it all. The first. Actually, I made sure to check because I checked the start of your channel and the first video, and it matches the date, October 4th, 2022. And
No way, really?
Yeah.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
I found that cool because you pretty much just started the channel and then uploaded a video, and it was I used to buy album based on like the album cover.
Oh yeah.
And I was going to just make a quick note before the actual question because it's just mentioning for the people watching so they know what the hell I'm talking about here. But this quick mention is that for being your first video, it was like as if you've done this for like years already. The way you approached like the recording, you were like, "Sup, guys?" Just like as if you came back already from another video. And I think that's a really good way to start. You just go fucking straight into it, not fucking, beating around the bush, being all. Because I mean, you can look at like J-Dog. His first video is like he's like completely, he's like as almost shy on the camera, like. Sitting there, oh, hello guys, this is just normal here. And actually, what my actual question here is, what inspired you to start?
Well, yeah, so not long before that first video, and thank you very much, by the way. That makes me feel really, really good to hear. Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
Not too long before that video, I went out to Las Vegas because out in Las Vegas was the second annual, for me at least, Psycho Festival. And I went the year before. That festival was mainly kind of doom, sort of sludge. It had a pretty good mix of stuff. But for somebody like you and I, we can look at it and say, okay, they bill themselves very diversely on the surface, but we look at the lineup and we're like, that's a mainly kind of doom stoner sort of sludge. I mean, they've had like, I think the year before this most recent one, actually in 22, like they did have like Profanatica played. I'm trying to think as like like Obituary played, but like, it was like I Hate God. I'm trying to think of some other like well-known like sludge bands, like Wino. I think one of his bands played, like Wino from St. Vitus. So like, it was mainly like stonerish and stuff like that. But I went in 21, not long after the pandemic, kind of like, when the world started opening back up again, because I was like, all right, the world is starting to open back up, so I'm gonna go somewhere like this summer. And I was going to go to some tropical island because I'd never been like to an island before. But then I saw the lineup for Psycho and it was like Danzig. Danzig was headlining. Oh, God. I'm trying to think of like other, like, let me see. From 2021, it was like, Satyricon was supposed to play. And I really wanted to see Satyricon. Emperor was supposed to play. So a lot of big bands from Europe. And those black metal bands ended up canceling most of them because they couldn't get their visas and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah,
so anyway.
Yeah, that's a very common problem. I hear that from J-Dog as well, with like the bands he likes.
Right. So anyway, I went out and I had such a great time. And then I bought tickets for the following year. And it was a very, very well put together festival. And before that, I hadn't been going to as many shows. There was no reason in particular. I just hadn't. Life got in the way. But once I went to Psycho and then I went the year afterward, I said, I really miss this world and I want to jump back in it. So, I mean, growing up, I would always go to shows and stuff like that in my teens and my 20s and stuff. But just the last bunch of years, from like maybe 18, 19 upward, I just, for whatever reason, I kind of held back a little. But so I was like, okay, I could maybe, jump into something like Reddit, but I'm like, I get lost in all the navigation. I don't understand it. There's like Mew on 4chan, which I like a lot, but I'm like, there's not much of like an engagement like you can get with YouTube. So that's really where it came from. It was just like that where I live, my immediate city doesn't have much of a scene. But I was like, I just want to be back in the scene in some way. And I grew up in a part of the country that had a fantastic hardcore scene. And I still listen to a ton of hardcore today. But where I'm at now in Virginia, not too far from DC, it's pretty lacking, at least in my like immediate surroundings. To go back and be immersed in live music, I'd have to go about an hour or so away, and it's not really all that like feasible right now, you could say. So I figured YouTube's a good way to kind of just meet people like you, and here I am.
Yeah, and actually, so really, what brought you to YouTube was in a way the whole metal thing. So
yes.
So that's
without
that's what why I'm like sort of like hinting towards that thing with like metal is just like it's that thing. It brings people fucking into shit and wanting to do things. That's why I think like metal is probably like, if you had to do like a poll, well, obviously rock music more than metal, but metal is like one of the easily biggest genres when it comes to like people who listen to it end up picking up an instrument and such, because
yes.
it makes you want to do something, because even if you like me discover metal for like Guitar Hero or whatever, eventually you're listening to those guitar solos and riffs and you're like, well shit, that sounds fucking badass, and then you kind of start to wonder, could I do that? And I mean that's actually, well, this happened way before Guitar Hero for me, because I, as a very, very young kid, I tell this story to almost everyone I meet because it's fascinating. I grew up pretty much from my infancy, my baby years, because my mom, she loved the 80s, and well, it goes into the 70s because Iron Maiden is a 70s band that, you know, they made their debut in, I believe, 80, yeah, and they have some EPs and shit going on. So she loved Maiden, she loved Kiss, and she obviously loved Europe because that's the Swedish band, you know?
Yeah.
And such. So she grew me up on that, and actually the first song I ever like, if they skipped it on the radio, I started throwing a fit in the car, in the back of my dad's Camaro from 1969. I love that car, and he obviously sold it for something more tame as he grew older.
Yeah.
Because, you know, as a dad grows older, he doesn't really lust for the muscle anymore. So,
right.
But I will say he drives a Buick Roadmaster from 1955, and you don't see, there's like none of those in Sweden, like pretty much aside from the one I've seen from his. And that one's just, I don't care if there's like a bunch of paint that's flown off. It's like, I call that shit patina, and I call that shit art.
Sure, yeah. Oh, wow, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Wow. I think, if I'm not mistaken, if that's the model I'm thinking of, yeah, that has like a pretty stellar reputation over here. I'd have to like check on that, but I think that's the one.
I like about, I'll say, pretty much even like into the late 40s, because they started getting that signature American, like the way they design cars being a lot, like for example, even the first, like the T model Ford, that is pretty much a hot rod, but you're driving on wood.
Yeah, right.
But people take those and modify them, and you know they make them hot rods and customs, and so even into the 40s and in inception of cars, that whole, like, for me, up until sort of like somewhere in the 70s where the shift happened, because even when the whole thing with like the gas emissions thing happened, there was still some people who were trying to push out cool looking models, though they had to be nerfed due to the emissions shit. But there were V8 models that were practically bliss, because especially like before the very tail end of the glory years, when you have that like 1970 like Dodge Challenger and such. And my favorite car ever is the Plymouth Roadrunner, specifically the '68 one, because I like I like the taillights because it reminds me of the Dodge Dart, which is my other favorite car ever.
Oh, okay.
And I guess what I was gonna get at is the thing I like about all of those, like for example the '50s, like with the Buick Roadmaster. The Buick Roadmaster, because of it being GM, it had a lot of like curves and features that the model, if you like, it looks similar to some Cadillacs and such and so on and so forth. And the same goes for the whole Mopar thing. So I like that there's some, like, a lot of those cars, they share certain stylings, and there's some consistency in there. It's like if you compare Deicide to Morbid Angel, they're both awesome, but they have slightly different things and knacks and quirks about them that really, you know, set them apart.
that reminds me of, like, I never really thought of it that way, but the similarities, despite being like different, you know, manufacturers. But it reminds me though of if you think about the Corvette being GM, but then you think about like the Ford Probe. Like, I think the first time I saw the Ford Probe, like, yeah, see, like, you'll notice it. Like, the most recent, I think they discontinued it, like, over 20 years ago. But, like, the front end is really reminiscent of, like, the, like, say, mid to late 90s Corvette. I think that was, like, the C5. Yeah, like the C5 or something like that.
That is like 1-to-1.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like, but I was like, wait a minute, that's Ford, and then the Corvette's, you know, GM and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like, just when you were saying that, I was like, oh shit, that's right. That's a really, like, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, and the reason why I've come to this obsession is because also what I grew up with is from my dad's side. He's one of because like Sweden, I'm pretty sure we have one of the world's biggest car meets in the terms of old classic American cars, because for some reason us Swedes, we just drooled over these American cars when they started coming here, because I guess we probably started being able to import them later due to, well, expenses and shit. So, but you know, and people obviously, it was a different time here. We were driving Volvos and Saabs. Meanwhile, there were people driving a bunch of Fords over there. So when like the whole, like, I think it even started in the late 70s, but when the 80s hit, like, that's what my dad always talks about when he's like talking about his childhood glory days for him. It's like people really started like buying like the signatures, the Ford Mustang. My dad owned actually a like the Ford Mustang Boss model that's a little more bulkier and all that, and I mean he has still obviously the photo of that one, and I seen it and I looked at it, and that I mean, that's one of those cars, like, you look at it, damn, that's a good ass car. You don't even need to drive it to know, you know. And
I haven't driven or owned a Mustang, like I say yet. Like, I have owned a Challenger, like one of the new school Challengers, and I have a 5th gen Camaro now. Like, that's like my main car. But I haven't. There've been times like where I'm like, all right, am I ready to jump into a Mustang? Like, my older brother, he lives out in Vegas and he's got one. He's got like one of the current ones. I don't remember like the it might be like the Eco Boost thing. So it's like, you know, it's like pretty new school and everything.
That one, they put a V6 in that one.
Oh, is that? I think that's the one I'm thinking of. I could be wrong, but it also might be because I had an F-150 at one point that had the EcoBoost, so that may be just like invading my thoughts or something like that. But I don't know, maybe Mustang. So
what I was going to say, a lot of those like newer cars, they tend to share transmissions and stuff as well. So that's something that I'm very invested in, also modern automotive, and there will be a very explainable reason why. Because what I was getting at is, you know, through the 80s to the inception of SuicidalGrind, the Kim being born, which I was born on the very last day of the year 2000, the 31st of December. So,
wow.
Yeah. Up until then, my dad lived his... we will have to refer to it as the greaser years, because that's the most similar American word to what we technically, like, that is the style that we dress up in. Like the whole, like, the girls tend to look like the pin-up dolls, and the guys tend to do the slicked hair with the fucking either denim or leather jackets and shit. And they always put like Mopar patches and stuff. And stuff. So when I finally became a person, and you know, as I stopped being a baby in the back seat, I started understanding things, what happened around me. I was growing up with my dad pretty much inside of these car meets, all of like, because they're I live in a city that's like, if someone in Stockholm hears me talk about my city, they're like, you live in fucking nowhere. I don't even know, dude. Like, this city is insignificant, but for some reason the culture is just so spread out that even in the most northern places of Sweden, where they get like pretty much Siberian levels of cold and snow, they still have that culture up in we call it Kiruna. It almost sounds Japanese, the name.
Yeah, right. It does. Yeah.
The thing with me growing up and always being in the car meets, I mean, I go from being 5 to 10 to I get here, and just being around, obviously, these classic American cars for the most part of my life, it's going to influence you, either in the sense that you either love them or you just don't, right? Because you could tag along with your dad just because it's fun. Because we do a lot of like cruising where everyone's like, there's a bunch of cars for like just going slow in the city. Everyone's playing music in the car, just some good old cruising. That's like the culture that I'm grown up in, essentially. And it's so funny because, to me, I essentially grew up within a Swedish American culture, because everyone was waving like the American and of course the Confederate flags with the cars, and because it's like weird because it's almost like we're like the weeaboo thing, like we're trying to be American over here in Sweden. Yeah. But I just couldn't help it, because what would happen is I would obviously, as I grew older, I was allowed to start walking around myself in the car meets, and obviously I did even when I wasn't allowed to. But I started, going and seeing all these models, and eventually you start knowing what you like and what you might not like, and something that I guess this is actually similar to like how J-Dog views the whole deathcore thing. It's kind of what happened with Swedish car meets, where now we're getting a bunch of, we call them tractors, but it's essentially when you put a 30-kilometer speed limit on a normal car, then you are allowed to drive when you're 15 with like a moped license or something. It's a weird little thing, but it's like, okay, they let the teenagers have fun, cool, whatever, But the thing is, they've started putting those cars at American car meets, and normal ass Volvos and Ferraris and Porsches coming into American car meets, and it's like, this is not really the culture that it is meant for.
That reminds me, because I lived in Detroit City for like 4 years. And they had this cruise, you might have heard of it, because you seem to know like U.S. auto culture and just U.S. culture, period, very, very extensively. But like they had this cruise every year called the Woodward Dream Cruise. And there's a part of Michigan, there's a long road called Woodward Avenue. And it's well known because you could be on Woodward Avenue in Detroit, but you could also, if you just stay on it, you'll go like halfway up the state. So every summer, there's like a cruise, and yeah, it's all mainly, I should say, it's mainly classic, muscle. But the last couple of years, from what I hear, somebody will sneak a Ferrari in it. Somebody will sneak like there's a lot of money out there in a couple of the
Yeah.
counties, so like somebody might own a Bugatti and they'll sneak it in there, and it's
Yeah,
always kind of
so
like,
it's both. It's happening everywhere. I'm sure it's happening
yeah,
in car meets in France even, for all I care. Not that I really know much about their car culture, but mainly because I'm not exactly a massive fan of France in general. But actually,
okay,
there is one thing I can say that is awesome about France, and you saw it today, because that is what I made a video on. Because Osmos Productions, that is a French label. That is hands down the best thing to come out of fucking France. Because what I discovered is, I go on there and I start looking at stuff, and I put it in the shopping cart, but just putting it in there, and eventually I look at the shopping cart, it says $200, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should try to pick out a little bit of favorites here, because that's what happens on that site. That is, I think Osmos Productions is kind of like, for me, what I would love the most about Hell's Headbangers if I lived in USA. Because the reason I don't buy from Hell's Headbangers is because if I do, once it gets into the whole toll thing, because it's not an EU country, that America, they're not an EU country, you get fucked in the ass, essentially. Fucking just DP'd, like I said before.
yeah, right.
But they give you a bunch of extra toll taxes and fees. Thankfully, when you buy something, like, in terms of, I guess it's probably measured by weight or something, like so, it doesn't get too much. But like, for example, if you're importing a car, like, I can just imagine that's like import taxes and fucking, yeah, no wonder not a lot of people do import cars. I mean, my dad used to work with at a place where the essentially head honcho of the company, he's even there fucking cranking wrenches himself, but because he is one of those guys, I believe he even has like a place to live in America, so he imports a bunch of cars. That's his living. But that is an expensive fucking living to try to make, but it's the passion. And so yeah, that's why I don't buy from Hell's, because let's be real, I'm the kind of guy where if I want to buy from Hell's, I'm gonna try to make it count. And what does make it count mean? You're trying to get as much good shit as possible, and then that weight's gonna be added up, and then there's the chance of what I also talked about in my video, of the postman having a field day with your package, because that is a global struggle. I don't know what caused postmen to be so aggressive towards packages, but something about their job makes them so pissed off that they just have to molest every package you get. Like, almost every time I bought a vinyl, it looks like someone took a knife and just shoved it in there, somehow didn't damage anything. That's just so interesting. But
there was an expression, like, it's kind of died out, I think, in recent years. I haven't heard it maybe in like 10, 15 years, but there was an expression in the US for a while. It was called, you might know it, was called going postal. And the reason, yeah, and it's because like there were a couple like high profile cases of postal workers, like losing control and like shooting places up and everything. It's, people start saying, "Oh,
fascinating."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Actually, the biggest reason probably why I even know that term is because of the game Postal 2, where you.
Right.
That's why I know about that, because I mean, I obviously grew up watching fucking PewDiePie when I got a computer in 2010. So that was I mean, the introductory to, like, because I mean, you'd be surprised, because I learned most of my English from the online internet webs, just listening to people talk, because for some reason English always kind of like makes sense to me. Like I almost like recent years I've almost stopped speaking my native language, because I like to the point where sometimes I'll like be speaking with my dad and I'll fucking fuck up my words.
Wow. Yeah. Do you think, like, do you still think in sweet? Oh, okay.
No, I actually mean yes as in English, because like, that is what happened, because when I was still very little, like, obviously, because when I was little, I wasn't exactly one to stay away from games that had a scary looking 18 number on them,
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
my best friend at like childhood, he had Vice City, and then later, of course, I started, got into GTA San Andreas, which I think, if you asked me when I was a kid, that would be my favorite game. Now it's shifted because, I mean, I love that game for nostalgia, but that's kind of like where it ends, because I'm more of like a proper open world gamer at this point. Like I am completely like it's essentially the same reason I enjoy hiking. I go in a game and I start essentially hiking in the game, because
Oh,
I
okay.
just enjoy when a game world has like a massive world with lots of like different environments and nature and shit going on. Hence why my favorite game now of all time, I would say, is Red Dead Redemption 2, because when you actually get to the free roam of that game, there's like nature out the ass. I mean, you could, and the funny thing is, even though they, for some reason, didn't include Mexico, which I wish they did, because they did in the first game, and there's a, like, maybe even a bit funny story about that later, but the whole world, especially once you don't think about the whole missions, because when you play the first time, you're kind of focusing on that and shit, maybe playing around and fucking around a little bit here and there, but you're kind of like interested in the story. And of course, I'm not saying it's my favorite game of all time, not enjoying the story. It's obviously a big part of that. But once I actually got around that, I mean, you literally have like a side mission that is like catching rare fish,
Oh,
like
wow.
in rivers and such, and that for me is like, I mean, shit, I love fishing in real life, so so
Oh,
that's
okay, okay.
and then there's obviously the hunting aspect and stuff that carried over from the first game, but the fact that with that and having the immense detail, like you literally need to eat to like, survive and such, and when you're cold, I think it's like that your energy gets drained when it's like, if you are dressed too lightly in cold weather. Like like that's impressive, and that's a game that's, I believe, 2018, and that's just the reason why for me Rockstar is, I mean, they're doing things that, like, they're not just making like a good game, they're innovating with every single game they're putting out by just outperforming with like intricacies and such and such. But yeah, I realized I was confused how I got here for at first, because, but I never remember the whole going postal. Crazy how I
Oh,
can
yeah.
trail off. But yes,
But that reminds me though, because you were saying San Andreas, and like I was thinking, because you said that you liked hiking, and I was like, oh, that makes me think of like the kind of like backcountry part in San Andreas, because I used to like that too, like
yeah.
the where like the part with the tractors and stuff like that. Like
Oh
that's the
yeah,
first thing
dude.
I
I,
was
I
thinking
literally
of.
got goosebumps from that because it's not even that long ago that I played the game, but I literally got goosebumps about that, because that's like the most iconic version of that area, having the mountain called Mount
Yeah.
Chiliad, because they put up there were obviously already internet trolls, as we call them now, back then, and they made videos like, oh, here's Bigfoot, bunch of stupid
Yeah.
shit like that. And I think someone made even like a GT San Andreas like story version of like the 28 last days, or whatever it's called, 28 days later, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Right.
on
Right.
like YouTube, and that's the only reason I even know that movie title, because of that, because they made like
Oh, wow.
horror like things where they had a bunch of different characters, and they made like cinematics, and just, and the crazy thing is, people do it still now. Like people have made movies in GTA 5, like stories, and that's, I think that's another fascinating thing about gaming, is the fact that it sparks a lot of creativity in not just the actual developers, but the people playing it with the mods and stuff. But yes, I was actually going to embark on a maybe funny story, because the first Red Dead Redemption, when I played through that for the first time, because that was actually one of the first games I owned when I got an Xbox 360, but the first time I got an Xbox 360, I didn't even barely get to play the game because the Xbox 360 my dad bought, he planned to repair. So when you put in that CD, the game looked like it looked like you had gone into fucking video editing software and fucking fucked with all the effects. and so I never actually got to play that game. I only got to see like the very intro of that game.
Wow, no way.
Much later in life, I think even like past 2020, must have been even 2021. Yeah, because COVID, I think there was there was concerts coming back. Must have been like later 2021, like autumn or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Or early 2022, something like that, during spring, probably. If it's one of those options, I might not be even remotely correct, but it's recent in the terms of time. I finally got to, I went on essentially Swedish, like I guess Craigslist or whatever else you might have for like just used shit, just general used shit. So and I ordered, from someone who just were probably just selling off their old games. I bought that Red Dead Redemption 1, and then I started playing it and finally got to actually like experience the story. And the funny thing is I actually played the full story of that game before Red Dead Redemption 2, even though Redemption 2 is literally a prequel, because they tell the backstory of why, like the main guy in Red Dead 1, where like how did John get here, and where like why is the cops making him chase after these guys or whatever,
okay.
Yeah. So in the first game, the funny thing is that once I got to Mexico, there was that store is still there, but they don't sell this anymore, which I'm sad about, actually. They sold, I believe, either Polish or Czechian candy called, literally, this is the exact time I enter Mexico, save the game, next day go to the shop to buy candy, and they have a candy called Pedro.
Oh, wow.
with a little
Really?
Mexican guy on, cartoon with a Mexican hat. I started buying those because they were selling them super dirt cheap. And the funny thing is it turned out to be like the best fucking like sweet gummy candy I've ever had. Like, I was
that's awesome.
What the fuck is this shit? And I realized later, like, I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 1. I'm in Mexico drinking Coca-Cola and eating Pedro.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Just for those timelines to align like that, that's just weird.
I know, right? Yeah, that's so strange how it just wow, and that's so funny.
Now, I've tried finding a site, but every site is in a foreign language that sells like actual packages of it. And
I'm
not even sure if they ship here.
Because man.
Yeah, but hopefully they start. I mean, I hope Pedro becomes honestly, if tomorrow Pedro started dethroning Feastables, I would be fucking ecstatic. Because I would be able to buy that online.
I hope it does. Just like to see your reaction.
It's cool. Because that's like, of all like the import candies, I guess, from these parts around Europe that they can sell for super dirt, just scrap money, essentially. Like,
wow.
Like, not even enough, like, so little, you're not even losing gas money buying that. Like,
wow.
I think they even had, like, at some point they even have, like, a deal where it was, like, free, like, bags of that gummy candy for, like, 5 Swedish krona. And that is, like, cents. Like,
wow.
Like, barely, there's, like, you're not even making a dent in your pocket. And that, for me, that even gives, I mean, we're in 2024, we're talking not many years ago. That still gives me a little bit of nostalgia thinking back on that, because they're selling other candy not as cheap as that one now, but still cheap, because their whole thing is that they're selling cheap stuff. That they're whole, they have like a whole monopoly in like having the best deals on like snacks and candy, like mainly the snacks and candy. They don't really try to be generous with their drinks, except for the energy drinks. They have they seem to really want people to buy energy drinks from them, especially me, who is an avid addict. But they have good deals on this and that. But they also have consistent good deals for some stuff. Like, for example, chips, they've always had good deals on. That's like a staple of their... Like, that's literally why I even started going there, because my mom started telling me, this fucking place is selling chips for like 10 Swedish krona. Well, I think it was 20 Swedish krona, which is like still dirt cheap. And that started becoming like the talk between me and my mom, that them having like a really good deal on chips. So I started going there for buying my chips. I mean, shit, it was like a very slightly shrunk version, but it was like if you compare the two, it was like 175 gram compared to like a 275. So I mean, really, I don't need this much chips over here. that is more expensive anyways. But I mean, it's quite fascinating the kind of topics you can start covering when you start just having like a podcast chat.
Yeah, I know, right?
But yeah, I guess I was just saying that whole thing is like it becomes, because you know it's not there anymore, that candy that are associated with that place. But you know they still have, and actually the funny thing is they recently moved out from because they have a pretty small store location, and they recently moved to a massive store location. Like they're expanding the shop.
Oh wow!
And I haven't been there yet, but I assume if I go there, I might be low on groceries or something.
Yeah. The worst is like when there's certain, like whether it's like a candy or just any food item that like from back in the day that you grew up with, and it's so bad when nobody else remembers it, when like you're the only person that remembers it. Like there was a grocery store where I grew up, and they had their own store version of like the rice pudding, and I loved it. Nobody, like, because I don't live where I grew up anymore, but like when I visit up there, I'll talk to people like, you know, about my age and everything, and people will say like, "No, I can't. I don't think I ever tried that." And I'm like, "Oh man, you're missing out and stuff." It's just like, you know, that's the worst.
Yeah, and I have two more points, but this next one is not serious at all. This one's just to humor. This one's just to humor Nick with the whole camera angles.
Oh yeah, right.
Like I have to explain the backstory why this became a joke, because oh yeah, I guess I can also this actually can tie into a more serious thing where I'm talking about another thing I like about the channel. Because I already told you in the comments, but just explaining it makes it more in-depth and personal, I suppose.
Oh, yeah.
Like, a new album had been released. I think you know what I mean. 6 Feet Under's Killing for Revenge.
Right.
I listened to it myself. I literally did a full live stream of it, and I was, like... The thing is, I had already heard, like... I heard 2 singles, because I think did they do Compulsive as the second single? I think maybe, but I know for a fact the first single was Know Nothing Ingrate. I was like,
right.
The thing is, literally before anything of that, when they started talking about 6 Feet Under releasing a new album, because I followed Chris Barnes on Twitter before I removed that because I got sick of that website. Same reason why I don't have I don't go on Reddit unless I absolutely need to have a nerd tell me something I need to know about. Because I cannot stand those online communities. I use Instagram now because they seem to tap into that 2016 just complete dark humor that I resonate with. So Instagram's been fine for me. So I'm staying there, but I'm sure it's gonna start getting to like the cancel culture thing soon enough, because you know people start going on there more now that the whole like they're copying the TikTok thing with the reels. You're scrolling through videos, so it's gonna get more popular and more popular, and eventually people are gonna start getting fucking canceled on Instagram Reels. This Instagram Reels creator did this, and it's just like I'm like that with both music and like entertainment. I don't give a fuck about like people's personal lives unless I know them. Like
yeah.
I listen to the music for the music, and I watch videos to enjoy my food a little more.
Okay.
or to pass time, for example.
Yeah.
So when I hear all this, like, oh, this YouTuber said the N-word when he was singing a song, I'm like, like, you guys have so much time to worry about this stuff. Like,
I would never like. I mean, I'd never be able to like decipher like anything like that. I mean, like, Malevolent Creation comes to mind, but that's the only other band I could think of, like, at least, like, you know, with death vocals and stuff that has, like, I don't know, nothing comes to mind that I'd be able to decipher, like, oh, that's what he said. Like, you got to have some real.
Here's the thing. Funny enough, I don't even know how I stumbled upon it. It might have been a Reddit post or something like that, because I was looking up. I think because at the time I was. What was it? Because I was definitely. It was definitely either before I listened to the discography of Malevolent Creation, or when I had, you know, started going into it but not yet listened to Eternal. I think I was just, you know, searching out, because I'm like, when I listen to, like, for example, when I listen to Stillborn, which I should have fucking waited with wearing that shirt for this video. That is one of my favorite Brett Hoffman albums, but that's one of the albums people are like, I don't know, but I think the fucking like the drum production, if anything, sounds unique from like other shit and such. Because that's another thing. I can save that for later. But because I'll get to the Malevolent Creation Eternal story here, how I got into that album. Because I actually got into the album because of the controversial song. But I guess the thing I do is I listen to an album when I'm getting into an artist, like, because I haven't checked out, like, for example, Monstrosity, like their discography yet. I intend on, because that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to go back to the classics and such, you know, because practically before J-Dog, I wasn't really even thinking that way. Like, I had been introduced to Morbid Angel and all that. I found Vader on my own, and I was, because someone I followed, the Flesh God Apocalypse drummer Eugene, he did a cover of one Vader song, and I was like, damn, this is some fucking blasting death metal. So I'd go check out Vader's discography, start the first album, and you go down, and then I hear an album that has even more insane drums, and one of my favorite drummers, aka Pavel, or you know, Polish name, on Welcome to the Morbid Reich, that album has like literally 300 BPM blasting and shit like that.
Oh my god!
And that is one of those bands. Vader is like, they have always been like a blasting death metal, like, just they're here to pound away at their instruments and nothing else. They're like, and if anything, Vader's kind of like the most death metal equivalent to like a Slayer in terms of like the aggression and speed, and like, sure, you can say like it gets maybe sort of repetitive, but the songs still stand out, and that's what I love about the band. Obviously,
I feel like they got like blastier as, like, you know, through their discography and everything.
That is true, because you start with the first couple albums. The first album, their logo looks like the Morbid Angel logo. That's what another thing I've always like. I was like, wow, this logo really reminds me of like the Morbid Angel logo, because they have a pointy top and bottom. But they came up about the same time as the debut, so I don't even know if that's even possible. I believe it's just mere coincidence that they just happen to want to have a cool death metal logo that was readable, because back then you weren't really getting the whole squiggly yet, and I don't even mind those logos. I mean, my logo is almost that. If you're like seasoned, you'll know how to read it, but like, my logo is pretty much teetering on like it's like Brutal's slam death metal-ish logo. But I mean, I can, well, shit, I got another topic later. But yeah, so obviously I listened to the first couple albums. It reminded me of like the Morbid Angel and some of, you know, like, because you had that similar just straight up like that later when death metal really started to pick up thing, because they came around literally in the, like, when death metal started getting more brutal and heavy, they just popped up out of nowhere. So it is true that once you get to like Litany, that album was when they started to fucking, I mean, especially with that drummer Doc on that. I know he's maybe on albums, but yeah, I think he's on before that as well. But that album is when you notice that they're more blasting. Like I think the entirety of like the Litany album by Vader is like blasting and maybe like some groovy parts, but it's like almost blasting start to finish, and it's absolutely merciless. Just the kick is completely just banging against your ear the entire time. But I love that album because like that's when I noticed that holy shit, they're really picking up an extremity here. So yeah,
that's how I feel like it was the album in the States when like I really started hearing about him a lot and everything, because like a friend of mine in high school was like a really big Vader fan, and like that's the album that he came up on him with, and he was a drummer, and like he actually went to the show. Yeah, he actually went to the show with his dad. I'm trying to think, did Vader ever tour with Morbid Angel in like, if I remember that, if I can get the year down correctly, it might have been that tour, but it was like one of his first concerts, and like, but he went with his dad. It was one of those things where it's like the father also had a very keen interest in, you know, the show too, not so much because he was into death metal, but he was into like the musicianship behind it, and just like you said, like I don't understand, like when it comes to music, I can't listen to a drum pattern and think, oh, that's 300 BPM. I know you know, the greater number and stuff like that. But like when I know that number to be something that is wild and, you know, should raise the eyes and stuff. And that's one of the things I think that like is unique about death metal too, or black or any extreme genre, is that like you can find somebody who may not be, you know, a fan of, let's say, the melody, because sometimes like extreme metal is lacking melody, you know. I mean, there's not a lot of grind, but you're blown away by the musicianship, period. And that's why I'm always very like, well, not surprised when I meet somebody that likes different forms of extreme metal. And you know, I'll look at them and be like, I wouldn't really take you to be like that. But it's for them, I think it's more an appreciation and a bewilderment of, you know, the art and the craft. I mean, maybe even me to an extent too, because sometimes I will hear certain drummers and I'm like, how the hell is that possible? And I'll look into it to see if there's triggers involved. And like, you know, I mean, if these drummers are to be honest, you know, you could believe some of them, and there's no triggering going on. It's just like, I didn't know that was humanly possible, you know?
Yeah. And the thing is, I understand what you mean. Like, you might have not, like, I am aware that you at least have some creative abilities with making music, but I haven't really seen like the extent of it, because I only heard like the smallest snippet of like the black thing you put in the video, and then I actually went and listened to the whole like the bleep bloop thing, and I listened to the first song. It's like, dude, he's like talking about this like it's some shitty shit, but like this could totally be like a video game thing, like like one of those side scroller 8-bit games that you play on like a website. Like it could easily like it had that vibe. So I think it was still like a cool like thing to like make a correlation like that. I just found that I think I only got to the first song. I was gonna listen to the whole thing because I was curious, but you know, then
it's all the same shit.
Yeah, I mean that's cool.
Thank you, thanks.
But that's what I'm saying. But I'm sure you're not exactly sitting when you're composing or making any musical things that you're not focusing exactly on the BPMs and such. But the musical creation of things is not even the reason why I got into the whole BPM thing situation. It's actually because of the rhythm games that I played. Because, for example, it's another rhythm game for the computer called Osu, when you click circles on the screen. But in that one, I mean, just like in Guitar Hero and such, actually I think it probably started with the Guitar Hero copy that's on the computer called Clone Hero. It kind of speaks for itself what it is.
Yeah, right.
But I definitely started with Clone Hero, because in Clone Hero, what you do, what is that you, obviously there is a chart for like the song. So there was a separate program that has been that has existed ever since the inception of like Guitar Hero 3 being on the computer, because people already, like when Guitar Hero 3 was on PC, people already started like putting in songs themselves. I'm pretty sure even like when people started being able to play like Guitar Hero 2 on computer as well for like emulating and stuff, they already started doing that. And also I think they did chart and then put it on the console as well, because that's possible. It's just I wouldn't be able to have the patience to make that happen, because you have to like convert a bunch of files and import them and make sure it's proper. No thanks. But
Right.
So when I got into the whole Clone Hero thing, because I mean I found the Guitar Hero community in 2016, as in like the community I knew about it. Like I said, Guitar Hero was very early in my life when Guitar Hero came out, like 2006. I found it then, and boom, there it is. I suddenly hear Dragon Force when I'm sleeping, but you know.
Oh, cool.
Actually, the funny thing is, I think I heard Dragon Force before I saw the game, because my mom loves that song Through the Fire and Flames. She was playing it on her phone with like the music video, and that's just I mean that was the times. Like she likes that, like when, for example, she loves when like it's like the whole like manly impressive singer for like a very easy example when it's like Bruce Dickinson doing like the operatic. So, and in a way, the whole power metal thing, like with C.P. Furt, his vocals are like power metal vocals are a bit operatic in that sense too, and go in fucking high pitch and all. So, and the fact that they were good-looking guys definitely helped in my mom liking it. Well, you know how it is. It's funny because she has a boyfriend since like I was 8 or something or whatever, and but she's obviously still like, oh, look at that good looking guy in his like metal band, and he's like singing all these high notes, and you know, that's obviously what happens. But yes, I obviously once the whole, because I didn't do any charting when the whole 2016 thing, because Clone Hero wasn't even a thing yet. That wasn't even created. People haven't fought that far yet, which I guess I can understand, because Guitar Hero Live was the newest thing then. That was the last Guitar Hero game they ever did, and they actually did 6 buttons, and they had actually made the game slightly more, using the term lightly, realistic, as in the 6 button wasn't like laid out like this. It was, they had 3 buttons on top and 3 on bottom, but you know, very close, so it would be easier to fucking,
oh wow.
So a chord would actually look like this, you know, for example, like
wow.
the buttons. But obviously it's not guitar proper, but it's not a guitar tab, but it's like more realistic. So I got that game. I got my mom to buy it as a Christmas present for my Xbox 360, because I was like, this seems like a really cool game. I mean, it's a Guitar Hero. It's a new Guitar Hero since, and I believe 2016, and the last Guitar Hero was Warriors of Rock, which was like 2010. So it had been a couple years and such. And I got into that one as well. I didn't get my mom to buy it when it came out, because you know times can be tough and such. But you know, to me, I was one of those kids. I'm like, why won't you buy it? I want the game. I want to play it. I want to play the game. Because, of course, you see a new game that looks cool, you want to play it. But, nonetheless, the Guitar Hero Live thing, that's why I say, like, for example, I used to tell people for the longest time, I think since 2020, I started really using this way of describing when I got into metal. I say I got into metal 2016, but the reality is that I've heard Iron Maiden since I was not even 10 years old, and and you know, already cried at my dad at like 7 years old because he wouldn't buy me a guitar that looked like Slash's when I first got into like actually wanting to play guitar. Because I mean I heard that goddamn fucking song, Welcome to the Jungle, and heard that riff and the solo, and I'm like, dog, you know?
Yeah.
And then I see his guitar, the way it looks, and I'm like, because now I don't call myself a very much of a Les Paul player. I'm not as interested in them anymore. I would like to own one, proper one, but I'm not exactly able to financiate that, because Gibson Les Paul, we know what the state is with those today. But
Yeah.
When I saw the vision of him actually playing the guitar, and I'm seeing him pulling these like leads and licks on the, Welcome to the Jungle, and that's like, it's like an invoking feeling. You're like feeling something new. Like, fuck, man, that's awesome. I want to do that too. Like,
yeah, right.
So it was actually, I owe it to Slash. He made me pick up a fucking guitar for the first time, and I mean, it ended up like that.
Oh man.
You can actually see. You can actually see now. I finally fixed the top row. You can see the one lonely little autopsy vinyl there.
Oh yeah, I was looking at the Jags. It took me years to finally to actually understand how a Les Paul is unique in its own sense. Like I understand some people will pick up a Stratocaster and it's they're blown away by the feel and stuff like that. And not until I picked up a Les Paul did I was like, oh, I finally get it.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just
I mean
something.
The thing is, I get it because I love the feeling on one, but I don't love the price of one.
I know that.
And actually, did you see that was a Jackson?
Yeah.
That's actually an Ibanez Geo, like a very weird one, because it's kind of like a premium Ibanez Geo, and I say that because it has the edge-free tremolo and it has EMG's HZs, so the actual passives.
Wow.
And it's like it doesn't love me because it doesn't want to stay in tune. It's like a hard to deal with wife sometimes, but sometimes it decides to stay in tune and I play it. That is actually a funny story there. I should get, because I haven't even explained the whole thing when I'm at level in creation. There's so many things I can talk about, but I mean, if you have time for it, I'll definitely be able to continue. Yeah, okay, good. That's a thumbs up from me, because I will insist. Because there is more stuff that I've always obviously be able to ask you as well, of course. Improvising on the spot more so, but yeah. So yeah, let's just skip ahead because so I get into metal, as I said before, even that stuff because of, and actually the funny thing is, I think it probably was that 2007, 2008. That was really when I started loving that whole 80s thing, because the game I played then was called Guitar Hero 80s Rocks or whatever, and they had like not all metal, but they had anything from let's say like this, that song I Ran So Far Away, for example, but I forget the band name.
Flock of Seagulls.
Yeah, thank you. And the Police was in there, but then they had shit like Extreme. Can you play players? Play with me, that one.
Yeah.
And then also stuff that a lot of the true metalheads don't like. That is like the hair metal Quiet Riot with the Bang Your Head, and then they have the Accept. I don't. Yeah, that was Balls to the Wall. That because it has that, that for me. That is still, to me, like, even knowing that Mortician is the heaviest thing we're probably ever getting, that is still a heavy riff. Like that riff. Like if you started singing like harsh vocals, not growling, because it like maybe more like a mid to high scream. That would be like a proper heavy song. That riff, because it has the balls, as because,
it's like
but which is fitting
because
it's called Balls to the Wall.
Yeah, that's true. But no, I know exactly what you're saying, because it's the same thing, similar to pretty damn similar, I think, to say "See You in Hell" by Grim Reaper. It's like, yeah, of course, Mortician.
Yeah.
Who's trying to think who would touch Mortician? I come from a death sludge world too. Yeah. So lots of times I'll hear bands like that, and I'm like, Primitive Man, they're probably one of the biggest and everything. But I was like, Primitive Man's pretty damn close to Mortician, heaviness. I mean, they're definitely not Mortician level heavy, but
it's all about the perception, of course.
I mean, I always try to measure it as all right, what is the relationship between the bass and the rhythm? And I mentioned this, I think, and I can't remember if I said this in a video or in a comment, but somebody kind of called me out on it. It was pretty funny. But I was I usually think of how you start getting heavy by stripping out the mids and somebody was like, the comment was like, music has evolved since Pantera. Mids are not a bad thing anymore. And like, I remember thinking, I was like, I listen to a ton of like doom and sludge, and like there's a ton of mids in that. So it's not like I like cast off mids or anything. I just think that like, it wouldn't surprise me if, you were to look at Will Rammer's like, however he's coming up with like when he plugs in and you look at the strip and everything, it wouldn't surprise me if he's got the mids down like a bunch and stuff.
I wouldn't, because bass is loud unplugged. I wouldn't even be surprised if he writes like that, because I mean you can hear it. But that's true. And then they had stuff also that, dude, I completely just fell for these songs. And this is just completely just like the glam metal. Like the glam is the glam metal. Like Rat, Round and Round, but it has that fucking guitar solo. And then Wingers 17, it has that fucking guitar solo. That's what, for me, really, like, it brings me in. And of course I love the riffs as well.
Well, and like the solo in Round and Round, like if I'm like hearing it like note for note in my head, always kind of reminded me, there's one lick in the solo that really reminds me a lot of the solo in Heading Out to the Highway by like Judas Priest. Like it's that like, I guarantee you, if you know what I'm talking about, like if you were to listen to them back to back, you'd be like, oh shit, I mean, that's
I don't have a perfect visual in my head of the Judas Priest song, but I'm sure if I compare the two,
you'd get it. Yeah.
But just I would have to hear them next to each other, and it's like, but so I mean, and obviously I already loved the whole like glam metal idea from Europe, because Kiss was the obviously predecessor to it becoming into metal, because they had the whole glam rock thing. And it's funny how the whole like face paint thing, we went from Kiss to Mayhem.
Oh yeah.
But hey,
somebody made a joke I'll never forget one time about like the non-makeup era Kiss. They said they were saying their favorite makeup album this is years ago. I remember I was on this, like, this is back before any sort of message board whatsoever. All there was to discuss, at least Kiss and many other topics, but there was like an email list, and like that was it. So it was like basically like the same level of discussion, the same volume of discussion as any other message board, but it all took place through email. And I remember somebody made this joke, and it took me years to like realize it. And then when I got it, I was like, holy shit, that's hilarious. Somebody made a joke about how when they put the makeup back on in the 80s, I'm like, they took the makeup off, on the right before the Lick It Up album. Yeah. And they were talking about how on the Asylum, they put the makeup back on. And I'm like, there was no makeup that they wore on the Asylum album. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's not true. They wore tons of like eyeliner and all that stuff. So they're making a joke about it.
Yeah, that's funny. And actually, I don't even like I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm a massive Kiss fan. I pretty much know the hits. I never really did a deep dive. I'm sure if I did it, I would find 90% of what J-Dog says is true. It's like the hits is really the highlights. But I mean, I'm sure the other things is like still like a good like party music and such.
Yeah.
But the whole thing for me is actually hearing Kiss Lick It Up. I mean, I wasn't even aware of the music video until way later in like 7th grade, when I had a music teacher who was like, he actually explained the whole history behind them removing the makeup and then the whole music video coming out for Lick It Up. So that was way later that I found out about that. But then when I heard that song for first time, I was like, this is my favorite song by this band.
Oh, okay.
But actually, that one and Heaven's on Fire for me, because obviously that one also has that little riff going on and such, and the chorus. And that's one thing I always loved as well about more, well, rock and roll way of writing, or, rock in general, where it's like, being catchy is not always bad. Like, for example, with the whole, for me, the most catchiest leads Iron Maiden ever did is in the what the fuck is it called? The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, with the melodic little lead part that's like a minute long. For me, that album started to become my absolute just full on fade because of that album start to finish is like when my Iron Maiden was at their most proggy, really. And the whole melody thing on that being that is probably their most melodic focused album as a whole, which I love. The like it's one of those things where it's like I don't understand why, but this taps into a fucking instinct part of my brain.
Oh man, there were a couple B-sides for the Somewhere in Time album, and one of them, because I was thinking about that, I was like, yeah, like that's a really good point on Loneliness. They're like, and it made me think like there's a couple B-sides from that album, one of which Adrian Smith sings on, and like Bruce does some backing vocals, but it's called Reach Out. And because I thought about that, I was like, right, that's true. The Loneliness that's probably the most melodic song on that album. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh wait, that's right. There's like that B-side companion.
Oh,
so like if you ever
tracks?
And it's like,
because the funny story behind Iron Maiden is actually, I think I said it in the video, but I might as well say it again because it's funny. My first vinyl ever was Seventh Son, The Seventh Son.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that was actually my favorite Iron Maiden album until recently. Like, it's funny. It's honestly like rocket science to me how this even happened, because I've listened to Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son so many times that it's pretty much equal, both on vinyl and Spotify and whatnot. You know, songs here and there as well. But for some reason, when I got in the grocery store and I start seeing Iron Maiden fucking on vinyl, I'm like, what is going on here? You know?
Yeah, right.
You're like, what are they doing?
Yeah,
so,
right.
I mean, I instinctively, I don't even know why I picked Seventh Son of all. I think it was ironically the thing that you said. Oh yeah, I guess I didn't touch on that. The thing with like the album cover. Like, cause I saw that album cover and I think I just grabbed it because of that. And that was the first album I ever owned on physical vinyl copy. Like I've owned.
But how old were you like when you picked that up?
I'm trying to think because it's either 2018 or 2019, so it's either 17 or 18.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay. Because I didn't like. It was different for me when I was really young. I did not. It was the same with Kiss. The same with Maiden. I did not like Maiden because my older brother got Live After Death for his birthday, and the cover scared the hell out of me. And I was 85, 80, so I was only like I think 3 or so years old, and that's all it took. I saw the cover, and it scared the hell out of me. And it was the same thing for Kiss. Like my siblings had the Kiss records, and I was like, I hated that stuff just simply because of the cover and everything. But not until years later, I was like, oh shit, like.
I understand that because, I mean, for me, I think because of the fact that I mean, again, another thing that's not really a secret on my channel, I have both ADHD and autism, but autism I have is called atypical autism. I guess it's, whatever. So, there's a bunch of fucking intricacies and different variants, and So, I mean, you can imagine how those two very different diagnoses are fucking fighting at each other.
Oh, yeah,
but,
right, sure.
I'm obviously better at it now, than I was as a kid. So, but I never really got the whole I never had the experience personally of being like intimidated by like, for example, the Number of the Beasts album cover. I was like, because I think it was because of the fact that always growing up, I would stay up late when I was at my mom's apartment. And, when mom is staying up late, what is she watching on the fucking TV? She's watching horror movies. So I think those were the things that scared the shit out of me. So albums covers couldn't, because I I got to see obviously The Shining and The Exorcist, and I saw one for some reason. I remember specifically being scared of this one because I don't think I was scared of The Exorcist the first time I saw it. I don't think I was scared of The Shining because I thought the Here's Johnny scene was fucking hilarious. But it's like that was probably my favorite horror movie of all time if I were to even rewatch it, and I'm confident in that because it's the one I remember the most of alongside. But the thing is, I always don't really like ranking, so I would probably put like a massive tie between The Shining and The Exorcist, because for me, The Exorcist, it's not just one of my faves because of the movie itself. It's one of my faves because the inception of death metal, like The Exorcist, the song, like that is the possessed song, the possessed riff. In my opinion, because that, and it's facts because that's the most popular song they have. It's
right.
The Exorcist, and on fucking 7 churches with a song that goes later on called fucking death metal. Now, as though they didn't put fucking in there, but they should have. But yeah, that for me, those two are probably never gonna leave my list because of the whole like growing up with those, of course. Like, but for some reason, I have another one that essentially 2 actually that gave me literal nightmares. But the one that's odd to me because I can't think for the life of me why, looking back and thinking and like literally just looking up images on Google of the movie, is The Black Cadillac. Why that movie scared the ever living shit out of me watching it as a kid. But that is.
I wonder if oh man, that's like. I wonder if that's where there's that band Morning Noise, and they were kind of spawned. They have members from like the whole like Misfits, Danzig, like New Jersey, like family and stuff. And there's a song in their most recent output called Black Cadillac, and like they're kind of a horror themed band and stuff.
That's cool.
I wonder if
that might be. I mean, it's very possible if they're doing. It's very possible if they're doing horror. But yeah,
probably is.
That one I don't understand, but these next 2 I do understand. I think I'll save the one that scared me the most, like almost pissing pants scared, for last. But the one that I remember being really fucking scary to me as a kid is whenever I was watching TV with my mom and the fucking movie for Kuyo came on, like with the fucking dog. Like,
oh really?
Yeah, because I mean that was probably one of the first like actually like tapping into anything remotely scary movies that I saw, and that one threw me for a fucking loop because I mean I think that was one thing growing up I think because of the whole spiel with the diagnoses, I've always felt a sort of uncomfortableness around dogs, but obviously I'm more comfortable around the good dogs now than I would have been back then. Obviously I still was mentally aware that there were good dogs back then too, but I was more bothered by it actively. I'm a cat person 100%, but I'm more accepting now at least. And so watching that as a kid, getting that as one of my first like tastes of any like the dark stuff, it sends like a little bit of a nostalgia. But I think, honestly, I don't think any movie when I was a kid, because this probably all happened around the same time when I actually saw him at my mom's apartment, is The Grudge. That one left me awake at night.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, that's like, I can understand that completely.
I mean, you were much older when that came out than I was, so I understand, like, that whole thing not being as bothered.
But it's still very, like, kind of, it's almost like bizarre is the way to describe it, like bizarre, just like,
I guess sort of tapping into like the whole supernatural thing as well, which would explain why I love it so much. But also my mom is complete, I mean, she might as well start ghost hunting. I'm surprised she hasn't, but it beats me why she hasn't. I mean, I should ask her why she hasn't. Maybe she's just not really interested in trying it herself, but she's probably the culprit for why. Fucking, that's one thing I don't like about headphones. They fuck with my hair.
Oh shit! There was a cemetery where I grew up, and the cemetery was literally called, like, no joke, it's well documented. It was called Blood Cemetery, and and there was some kind of, well, there's the family that owned it was the Blood family. It still is. I'm speaking about it in past tense, but it's still very much like, alive and everything. They're still alive and everything. And like, there was I never went there, but it was always like a tradition, I guess. Kids, teenagers on Halloween would go there. And there was some kind of rumor, which again, I never saw it with my own eyes, but many people I know who I have no reason to disbelieve or distrust, would tell me that like there were parts of the cemetery where I feel stupid even reciting this because it sounds so ridiculous. But again, like I said, I mean, this came from people I know, very trustworthy and everything. But there are parts in the cemetery that, for some reason, shoot some sort of from the ground, shoot some sort of like a red liquid, like resembling blood. I can't, like, I hate that kind of stuff. Like, I don't, you know.
I mean, that to me just sounds like a horror movie that needs to happen. Like,
Yeah,
blood comes shooting out of the graves. Like, that is just, I don't know. Maybe more of like a comedy horror thing, because to me that's fucking hilarious. But I obviously also personally, because I mean, I've had my own experiences that I think, I don't know, that definitely might have impacted me. I don't, so I definitely have my reasons for why I believe in certain things and such. But that actually, me saying the Grudge thing, having a little bit of supernatural going on, actually reminded me of another movie that I saw. I think I was scared of it, but not as scared. I was able to watch it in full when my mom showed me it. It was called Poltergeist. That one.
Oh yeah.
That one's very good. I remember that one being so good. I think that's the one where she gets like sucked in, the little kid. That sounds really bad, but yeah. And is there any other movie?
She, like, that girl, I can't remember what her she might have had some sort of like a health condition or something. But like,
I think I've heard about that too.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I mean, it's like, she's in a horror movie and then ends up dying like really tragically or something. And like, I guess like the legend has it that like a bunch of very unexplainable or strange things took place on the set of that movie and everything. And like,
I heard about that too, because obviously now more recent times I think I heard about that, the specific, like the story behind that. Cause I have believed in it since a kid, but it's like I wasn't really passionate about it until very recently, which is hence why I have the album Paranormal Mind, which I think you heard some song of. I think because that was this year earlier, so most likely. But yeah, I forget what other movie I was thinking of there. But yeah, those are really Poltergeist, and then what the fuck else? I guess I don't remember.
You know what you might like? Like, have you ever heard of a movie called The Gate?
No, I might have. It's like there's a lot of things called The Gate or The Gates to something. So,
oh man, the Gate. I think it came out in I might have been 87, but the plot is basically this one kid's father travels overseas and he knows his son is into heavy metal, so he buys him so he buys him a vinyl, and the band is called Sacrifix. And I'm trying to compare it to, like, I know the director just lifted the idea from some band that actually existed. Yep. Like, you could maybe argue Possessed, but I mean, they're here in the States, and the album and the movie came from like somewhere overseas. So anyway, in the liner notes in the vinyl, it tells the kid that like if you play the record backwards, you can open a gate to hell. Okay. And that's exactly what happens. But it was cool though, because it was one of those movies where like you see a typical 80s kind of heavy metal inspired movie. You look in his bedroom and he's got like, he's got Maiden and like the Live After Death imagery all in his room. And I think he's got like Slayer too. So all the like staple heavy metal bands from the 80s. And he's got all the posters and stuff like that. But it's very much like, a metal kind of like, inspired movie where like the idea came from and stuff. And yeah, you'd probably love. I think anybody
I can tell you've already sold me on the movie. I'm definitely going to look into legally getting a hold of that one.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's not even really a fucking thing that no one cares about. But so it's fun to make jokes. But yes, back to Malevolent Creation. Remember about that one? 30 minutes ago that I didn't get to. But hey, that's what happens when you find
Yeah.
because you talk about one topic, and you find something in that topic that you mention, and you're like, oh shit, this. But
Yeah.
yes, yeah. Like I said, I was probably looking around like just background information about the band while listening to albums as well. So I think like before doing the deep dive, I had already heard the Ten Commandments and Retribution, and I already knew that like I think the most popular opinion is that Retribution is their best album. But when I personally listened to it, I was like, I think Ten Commandments is like almost 10 times better because for me at the first glance, Retribution wasn't even really an album I felt like I was going to go back to, because Ten Commandments, when I heard that one the first, something about the riffs and songs on that one and everything about it just resonated with me way more. Obviously now I enjoy Retribution a fuck ton more after like the proper deep dive. I think because I heard it during an earlier stage of like for example, I had pretty much just gone into Morbid Angel by that time I listened to Retribution. So I was maybe looking for more, like for example, that by then I think at that time Gateways to Annihilation was my favorite Morbid Angel album. Now it's Formulas, but I say that it's really not any album that's my favorite, because now I'm becoming more into that. I'm noticing as I'm growing an adult that I'm feeling more and more like one of my buddies, I'll shout him out, Mike Violate. He's a crazy motherfucker. He definitely gets on par with my kind of humor. But I mean, he has a whole story about like a buddy or cousin or related or whatever, with like a goat fucking story or something. Someone going and bragging about that. There's man, I had a highlight of like a stream that he was on one of my other buddies called Drucifer. Has a really fucking good channel. I'll say this even though you know him, because people who might not know need to know that his channel is essentially like what got me properly into any of the war metal stuff, and such and such. But going back to that, eventually I went back to the proper deep dive. So I guess I might have seen something about like, oh, you know what it is? Now I know what it is. I got recommended because I had listened to, I think, maybe Up to Stillborn or something, but I got recommended on YouTube, the KKK show with the t-shirts in Germany.
Oh, right.
And obviously, when you see Malevolent Creation, a band you know, and the KKK show, literally in the title, that's the fucking title, you start getting a little interested.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like, are there a bunch of ghosts that are storming in here? KKK members in Germany? I didn't know they were over there. I thought they were in America, in the South, in deep Alabama or something. But beats me. But so I click on that, and I obviously read, and the description, they said something like, they were mentioning like the whole controversy with Eternal. And I actually listened to the interview they did with Phil Fasciana when he was like pissed after like punching his band member after, and I was like, damn, this song is a pretty fucking big deal. I mean, in this whole era of the band. So I go to actually like get a listen, because I didn't watch the show in full then. I have now, and ironically, it's one of my favorite live like videos of like the time. it's like,
okay.
Because like, I'm obviously not saying it's my favorite video because of the controversial stuff. Obviously, I love controversy and stuff like that for the whole like interesting aspect of it. But because for me, the sound is like, I mean, I enjoyed the whole like fucking raw live sound of like those cameras you had then. So for me, that just resonates with me. And of course, I love the whole like demo quality thing. Now, I'm not talking about no Mayhem demos where you can't hear anything, but like, for example, the 1986 Grave demo. Like, that's for me like one of the best things I've heard by the band. And that sounds, it's clear. There's some albums that have unclear productions that I love as well, for their own unique reasons as well. But yeah, so the reason why I love that live performance is because the sound, for some reason, it captures one of those sounds that it's one of those things again. It just taps into my brain for some reason. Really, just caters to some part of my brain that really enjoys just that whole vibe and stuff. And I think it's just because of like it sounds a little more like authentic and real when you hear it like that from a the camera back then.
Oh
It's
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
you're hearing more of like the room sound as the fucking
Yeah, right.
instruments echo on the walls because they're in that venue. And so I finally get to the song "They Breed," and this I know the band already. I think it was either I had heard because I definitely had listened again to Retribution, but I was either about to or had listened to Stillborn very recently. It's one of those options, but it could go either way. So I check out finally the song "They Breed," and I'm listening to the riff, and I'm like, that's pretty good. And then the drums come in, and they do the thrash beat that I think death metal has kind of made its bitch when they fucking they take that and just fucking run with it, like the whole Slayer, yeah. I call it the Slayer beat, makes it easier. But I think thrash metal fucking death metal they really took it to an extreme when But
I like when like you can really easily identify you call it like the Slayer beat. I've heard some people call it like the D beat and everything.
But for me, the D beat is more like the one where you have like an offbeat kick. I think like the more punky sounding version of it.
How would you do? All right, because like you probably know the answer to that question. Mm-hmm. I've wondered that like a lot. Like, so would you like? Because some people will simply hear like I think it's called 4/4 like. Some people hear that and they'll call that D beat, but like when I think of D beat, I think of like so it's like 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3. I can never like cement how like what is a D beat versus what's just a straight punk beat 4/4 type thing.
That's a really good question actually, but for me it's the one that goes boom boom boom, that one.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right. So I'm glad you did that because I'm glad you did that because it's like I just did that like sort of a different tempo. Yeah. So, like you went like right. So
I have a song in my head. I'm thinking of those like power violence, crust or whatever they call all right. Fucking names at this point.
Yeah,
it's actually a band Crawl from. I think they're from I don't remember, but they're from Sweden. They were a local band that filled in for another local band that was gonna play at a venue, but one of the guitarists got sick with COVID, which was like we're talking like the end of 2021, so it was still going around quite wild and stuff. Understandable, but they somehow managed to cramp this other band in called Crawl from Sweden, not the other one. I think there's maybe Brazilian or whatever, but I was like, well, obviously I'm gonna check out the band, but so I have an idea what I'm expecting. And then I listened to like the song, and it's like they do the whole like D beat crust power violence mix up thing, but they do the thing that I believe you might have noticed at least in the. Maybe I don't know when you found out about like the whole HM2 sound, but Nails does that. Obviously, they have the HM2 going on.
Oh yeah.
That's what Crawl does as well. But the difference between them and the other bands I had heard at the time, like for example, I had heard Entombed and Dismember, is that when Dismember stops playing, they step on the fucking pedal. To not letting fucking noises ring out. When Crawl stops playing, all kind of ear-raping noises goes on because they don't step on the fucking pedal. They just let that shit ring. And so when I hear this song, I'm like, wow. That like because it hits the song also has a because of course the HM2 is like the heaviest guitar tone in my opinion, like because it's the most distorted guitar tone you can get without it sounding bad somehow.
I think I got that pedal when I was younger, like because I've always like messed around with guitar and everything, but I think the mistake that I made, and I didn't realize it till much later on, was like. Look, when you play something like the HM2, do you play it through like a clean channel on your amp, or do you try to like?
No. I would never sin.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. So you double it up with
Yeah,
like
that's
the
a yeah.
distortion. Oh, okay, okay. Cause like when I got like my first like HM2, the only one I had.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran it with like the distortion on the amp too, but it was just like a small kind of PV type thing.
Yeah.
So the sound was like it wasn't at all what we know today as like HM2,
Yeah.
like played by bands that actually like tour and stuff like that and record. So I was just like, man, this sounds like shit. Like when I was younger and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
because you got the small speaker and stuff,
Yeah.
and also it doesn't just have to be with the small speakers. There's small speaker amps now that sound probably way better, but it's also like the cheap components might have been completely just
Okay.
stuff like that. But I actually have, believe it or not, of all things, I have a Fender Mustang amp, a Fender Mustang 2. But it comes with a full 12-inch speaker, so if you want to play loud, you can play loud. But
wow.
yeah, what I do is I either go through I think it's like American 90s, but you know, I've turned up the gain so it doesn't sound like Nirvana or anything like that.
Yeah.
American 90s to outsiders, I call them, is like the whole grunge sound. But when you turn the gain up, it sounds fucking like old school, like an old school, like very. I have to describe it this way, even though this is a total like nerd term. Very breathy sound, like it has a good atmosphere, like that Morbid Angel guitar tone, because he has that fucking. He has a specific Marshall cabinet with a speaker, because the speaker is like 80% of the tone. And that sound has that like that. I call it the Morbid Angel sound, essentially, for like everything, because he always uses that speaker. Everything's alters, at least. I don't know exactly Desolation, because I haven't looked into the gear for that one, obviously. But yeah, so I put it either on that, or they have a fucking other option that's called Metal 2000, which I think is pretty Metal 2000. It's pretty, it's Metal to the 2000, like it's 2000, like as in like like in not as in the year 2000, but you know, Metal times 2000. Because
right.
That is the channel where I sound the most like a proper like Dismember tone, like for example.
Oh, cool.
But the funniest thing about Dismember is, like an Everflowing Stream, their first album was recorded on a like PV Bandit or something like that. I think it's called. It's essentially the same thing. Like they have a bunch of those that because they have a bunch of variations of the Bandit with like different names and stuff. I'm sure you might be a little aware.
Oh yeah, I was reading about that. Yeah, because like I know like Dismember.
I think it was called like a Studio Pro or something like that. I don't remember or whatever.
Oh wow. Yeah. I just always remember thinking like, why does the HM2 seem to like have the reputation that it does? Because it's like, and then it's because I'm playing through like a small amp and everything. Plus, I ran it with like a dirty channel and stuff, but like when I first started like hearing about the lore about that pedal, it was almost like people were like making fun of it, and I couldn't understand why. I was like, it sounds pretty mean. Like, why would you like make fun of that and everything? I think like the explanation that I got was simply because of the name, like. And every kid that ever like learns pedals sees like, oh, you know what? I don't want the fuzz. I don't want like I don't want the tremolo or whatever. I want the HM2 because it says fucking heavy metal. So of course I want that one.
Yeah.
But
the heavy metal pedal. You start.
Yeah.
It's funny. It says heavy metal on it. If you start playing Black Sabbath on that one, you're not gonna be happy.
No, I know, right? Yeah, exactly.
It's funny because the name. And I actually have a Behringer copy. I think Behringer is one of my favorite companies, because right now I have a Behringer microphone actually in my makeshift mic stand, which is, I guess you might put plants in this thing, but to keep my microphone from making this like pot thing fall over, because I actually the microphone that I had, a Behringer XM8500 whatever, I think it's like supposed to be like a Shure SM something copy, like the round top, like 57
is that the 50s?
Or something.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
57, I think. Yeah.
But that one, it kind of died or whatever, and so I finally decided, okay, well, I might as well, treat myself finally, since I have more money than I did when I first got this microphone. So I actually have an SE Electronics microphone, because that I looked around, and in my price range it seemed the most fitting. And man, I mean, it kind of, what it did is it added more clarity in my vocal recordings, and
Oh, wow.
it was in the way that I exactly wanted it to, because it still made it so that my vocals remained similar sounding once I dialed the settings in right, of course, because I'm different microphones, you have to fuck around a little bit. But really, all I do on in terms of effects, here's the big reveal, big secret behind SuicidalGrind. Believe it or not, there's not even the mixing or mastering going on. You think I'm doing any of that? You're out of your mind. I open bias effects, turn off the amplifier so it doesn't sound like Anal Nafrak. That's a band that uses vocal distortion. For example, they do. That's what I know them as. Well, like whenever I scream into a mic with vocal distortion, okay, that's Anal Nafrak. I'm thinking of Forging into the Sunset, and like all of a sudden. But yeah. So what I use is just like in bias effects, I use a compression pedal and a reverb pedal, because I love reverb more than I love delay as of once I grew up for some reason. I don't know why, but for some reason, just adding a reverb, like for example, whenever I do black metal, I just turn up the reverb and such, because I think it's because it gives that more old school like room sound. And
Yeah.
So much.
I agree.
Yeah,
that's like my problem. Like the few times I've ever like recorded stuff, like for instance, like there was that kind of like ancient or like black metal project joke thing like I did. I think where I went wrong with the recording was just going overboard on reverb on every single instrument. Every drum had its own reverb. Every the guitars were like multi-layered. They all had reverb up to 10, the vocals and stuff like that. And like, but I have like intro music for my channel, and I made sure with that, I was like, all right, don't go crazy with the reverb, because you can't hear anything when like, but I'm the same way though. I like reverb over delay.
And then the background music that plays once you start talking is actually like also your So
yeah.
I guess another thing I can comment on quickly here before moving on with the whole. I mean, I was supposed to talk about Crawl, not the experience seeing them live. We'll get to that, but I also like your logo, like the channel logo with like the name.
Oh, thanks.
Because at first I was like, this looks interesting. Like when I first saw it, and I looked at it again, I'm like, I'm recognizing these letters.
Oh yeah, I was gonna try to like come up with like a logo, but I was like, I don't know. I lacked the creativity to apply it to logos and branding and stuff like that. So I was like, well, what the hell? I'll just like jack the letters from like different bands and stuff.
What I like about that, it reminds me of those like old like punk political looking things, the posters and stuff. And I love that, because that's, again, a lot of that, like, not the punk that came after, like the heavier straight punk that came after Ramones, once people realized they could scream into the microphone and people would enjoy it. They really had that going on with the, like, the themes and so. But well, I guess that was that for that topic. But with Crawl, so obviously when I hear the song on YouTube, it was one thing that was like my only complaint with the band is like they don't have an official YouTube page, so it's hard to like that. And they only have like they don't have all the songs put on YouTube either, and some songs are not even on like Spotify, like some songs that they play and such, but like literally they play live like multiple times and so. But
it's almost like you got, in like cases like that, it's almost like you got to depend on like somebody else outside the band who owns their music, and then they like upload it. Yeah, and they put it
Yeah.
onto YouTube.
Well,
Like,
thankfully, I think like a label or something like that had uploaded 2 songs, so I checked out.
oh, okay.
I checked out the song that fucking blew my socks off, and I think I checked out the other one. I think the other one, I think that one for me, I loved it way more as a song. But the first one, it's like hearing an experience for the first time because I had heard the HM2, but I haven't heard that with like no noise gate, no nothing going on once you stop playing. So I obviously realized that they were going to be quite heavy playing live, and so the first time I see him live is the time I realized that I didn't quite enjoy going to a live show without earplugs anymore, because with the HM2, that is probably the I mean, in terms of people being able to hear it in the back, it's phenomenal because it's the loudest fucking guitar tone. But when you're one of, like, when Kim goes to a show, he is a front row motherfucker, and I think I will be for most of my life. I think the only reason I would ever stop being in front row is once I've seen the bands I want to see, and I might be a little too old to deal with the mosh pit pushing me against the fence. That is probably when. And in some cases, pushing me onto the fucking stage. Like,
oh, yeah, that happens.
Yeah, because sometimes there isn't a fence, and you're almost... I mean, literally, you're standing here, and the fucking band's 2 centimeters in front of you. You could basically fucking fist in the face of the guitar, the singer, if you felt like it. But
I know, right?
Exactly. So I can deal with that now and probably in the coming years and so and for a long time. But that would be the only reason, and especially the once I've seen the bands like wanted to see them and such, because of course the first time I'm seeing them, I'm kind of also wanting to actually see them as well, because when you're not in front row, there's a big chance of you not even seeing anything because there's tall motherfuckers in front of you.
Right, yeah.
For some people, that's not an issue because they're tall themselves, but
I know.
But the thing is, in front row, everything is louder and more unclear as well. But I for some reason, it's another thing that taps into the caveman part of my brain that I just enjoy because I'm so close and I feel like my whole stomach feels like it's vibrating and about to explode. So when I saw Crawl live for the first time without earplugs, believe it or not, somehow it wasn't the only time I saw him without earplugs. And I can go into that story too before I continue because it's quite funny as well. I'm like, but I think my ears at the time were getting also like, for some reason I had a weird luck because I was starting to get sick. I actually got COVID after the show, like the week after. But for some reason, my ears were like slightly clogged at the time due to being sick. So for some reason, it made it enjoyable.
Okay.
Because it kind of provided a little bit of muffling. And I mean, and also, I see this guy in a massive... Because at this time, Gateways to Annihilation is my favorite album. I think by this... Not yet. No, yeah. Wait, when did I fucking buy that album on vinyl? I don't even remember. I would have to look literally on Discogs because that's when I started buying on Discogs. Like, that was the first thing I bought. Gateways to Annihilation on the original vinyl pressing. Because I wanted that in good condition. And I found it in good condition, which is lucky me.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. You do have to do a little trial and error, of course, because sometimes you have to take a hedge a bet on a very good plus that the very good plus actually is a very good plus, because sometimes someone looks at it with like half an eye and yeah, that's a very good plus to me. But yeah, and then a band played not called Creeping Death. I know that's a band, but Creeping Flesh played after them. Yes, there was 3 bands. So next, Creeping Flesh, and those I checked out before. They had a single off their upcoming album. I loved that single. I thought it was like, damn. It was like, it sounded like Bolt Thrower, and they have war themed lyrics. So, but it had more of like a it was like kind of what J-Dog thinks of Frozen Soul, but more like as in Bolt Thrower trying to play Swedish death metal. It had a more Swedish little punch to it in there. I think they also, I don't know. I don't think they used HM2s, and they were fucking awesome. For some reason, one of the members, I don't remember who it is because I didn't catch his face when he did it, but I think it was the singer because it was actually a weird transitional period. I had watched like because they had a personal channel, which was great because I got to actually find the music then. And
yeah, right.
they also had like a fun video, like a vlog of them doing like a drinking game, getting pissed drunk, and all chaos. And I saw the other vocalist, and I also watched a live video with pretty good sound. With like I think it was direct from the board, soundboard, and I thought, hey, this singer's. I mean, I heard him on the album, and then I heard him on the live version of an older song because they, and I was like, yeah, cool, that sounded really good. And then I get to the show, and when they played, I didn't recognize the vocalist, but apparently that's the new vocalist at the time.
Okay.
But I looked on their social media because I thought he was just stepping in. I was like, oh, it's just a different guy stepping in. Cool, whatever. I looked on their social media. They didn't even mention the other guy being replaced at all, really.
Shit.
The guy just came in. I'm the new guy, and I'm here. And I think the vocalist was the one he came up to me and thanked me for coming to the show when I was sitting in the couch later after them playing, chatting up with someone who actually recognized my YouTube channel. And I actually have more to say about that because that's not the only time that's happened at a show. Now, this was in my own city, so I figured, okay, well, that makes sense. Well, in my own city, someone recognizing me from my YouTube channel, it makes sense. Word of mouth and stuff like that might have caught some people around and such and such. Fine. That's fine with me. And he was pretty cool. And later, he's like offering me to like mix and master my album or something like that. I think he said.
Cool.
But that's where the whole thing with me not doing that comes in, because I was like, yeah, that's cool. I think it would probably sound like more professional, but like, am I trying to be professional? I'm trying to be what I want to sound like, and I kind of enjoy the raw approach and stuff that I try to keep and managed to keep. But so that was cool because I wasn't expecting, because I was just chatting with this guy, and suddenly my band member's like, oh, thank you for coming. I'm like, what? I wasn't exactly announcing it either, but and he didn't, because at first I thought it might have been because the bassist was the one who had took charge of like the merch stuff. So I bought a T-shirt of the, just because I like the music. I support the band. Hell, fuck yeah. So I bought a shirt, but it was the bassist that handled that encounter. So I was okay. Well, maybe the bassist said something about me buying their T-shirt. But then I was like, oh yeah, I even bought a T-shirt, and he looked surprised. I was like, what? The singer didn't know about that. So what is he coming thanking me for? Maybe because I was standing in fucking front of them headbanging. But sure, I mean, that's what I do at a show. And then comes a band that, for some reason, that's one thing that I find interesting. I always seem to have a weird, like, ability to not necessarily be buddies with band members, but it seems to happen more than it should, in the sense that I get lucky sometimes. Like every once in a while, every few years, I'll, for some reason, get a connection with a band member of a band or something, either through social media or whatever, and it's fine. It's cool by me, because I mean, even though I don't listen to the music for them, I'm not at the show for them, I'm at the show for the music. It's cool to see a fucking, because again, that's an important part of being a good live band, interacting with your fans as well, which is true, because I mean, it obviously, if people have a good experience because there's good, now I'm not saying they should go shake hands with everyone, but just like maybe some stage banter to the crowd, being like, trying to keep them alive in the crowd, not falling asleep on stage looking like complete Stone Age people here.
Yeah.
But so I thought it was cool and such, but for some reason that happened to this black metal band actually from my exact city. So it's a local black metal band.
Oh, wow.
And they also happen to be a band that shares a band name with another band called the Angra Mainyu. I think there's one from Germany, but this one that's Swedish, I think it knocks the other one out of the fucking park. But it's definitely underground black metal. And I'm not typically like an underground black metal guy, because I mean I'm not exactly going out my way always looking for that, because I kind of just let what comes my way come my way, because I do get recommendations from friends, and obviously I'm trying to expand into the legacy acts for now, because yeah, that's what I should be just educating myself on such and such, because, and also I mean, for example, stuff that maybe isn't necessarily like a Morbid Angel legendary act, but still like in the sense that the people I hang around, it is like, for example, Destroyer 666. Everyone I pretty much have made friends with know that band and have an opinion on whether they like them or not. I'm very sure Drucifer likes them a lot, but I don't know if, for example, my friend, I know he commented on your channel after I did that video about the like shouting you out and stuff, because it was the channel, his channel was called That Goat Metal Show. I think.
Sure.
The main guy is actually Barry Ruiz, and he's actually in a old school deathcore band, and I mean old school in the sense that the actual what deathcore was when it was actually deathcore, like death metal,
right.
And I say this every time I mention this. That is exactly what Dying Fetus is. They are playing the old school like deathcore sound, and especially on I forget the album name all the time, but the one within the Trenches.
Reign
Supreme.
Which album was it?
Reign Supreme. That one.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay. I was going like, wait, Destroy the Opposition? Okay,
that one too.
I got
that
you.
one is also very in there, but they have a lot more intensity and blasting on that one. The song In the Trenches is a complete just one of these. You're gonna go out with a boombox on the shoulder listening to that one. But that is like the old school sound of like the old school deathcore, and that's what Barry Ruiz. He is the vocalist for a band from New York called Goda Mentis. And actually, they actually have a live recording at the CBGBs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, because, like, CB's, like, I think closed up probably 10, maybe. No, it was longer than that. I think it was 20. Oh, no, about, like, 10. I think it was probably, like, 15, 11, 12 years ago. So wow, so this guy's been around for a while. That's cool.
They very recently revived the band. They played back in I think the 90s or something like that, and early 2000s and such, I believe. But I know they have some stuff in the 90s, so I'll hedge my bet on that one. See, he might. He has a cat called Scar, so Scar might come beat me up and for some Cuban catnip. But hey. I'll have to treat his. I'll have to, because that's a like little bit of a joke going on, a running joke that Scar is this like, evil creature that if you're not Scar approved, you're gonna have to start getting Scar approved. Like there's a whole joke with that Drucifer guy is like having a man bun at Starbucks, and Scar's gonna get at him for that one. He can't let no poser go away. But so he has a band that does play the old school deathcore sound. I did a vocal cover of their song Lost Souls, and he was like, and I get it, because if you hear someone cover your song, you're obviously gonna be gushing and all like happy and stuff. But I mean, when I hear from someone like, damn, you're like knocking me out of the park, it's like, I like this more than my own vocals. It's like, it's like, and then he's like telling me later, oh, and the other guys, they loved it too, like the other band members. And I'm like, hey, that's great, because he actually, once we started getting more of like a, friendship, because I started interacting more with his channel, through all this, it started with like it actually started with like the J-Dog, and then J-Dog did a video with More Than Red, then went to More Than Red's channel, and then I found Drucifer, and then once I found Drucifer, I started being active in the whole little community, because I think from J-Dog to Drucifer to that gold medal show, it's like that's like a community that's like tied together. It's a very tight knit community. It's like we know each other.
Right. It's so weird how like, but yet I've somehow discovered other little like not connected communities that it's so strange how like, yeah, just like you said, there's like, you got like the dog, Morden Red, you know, your guy Drucifer and everything, but yet I stumbled upon somebody about a month or so ago who with like crust in their name. Oh, shit. I'm trying to think of. Oh man, this is gonna kill me now because I can see this person's face. He's got a channel, and his music mainly centers around like war metal and everything. And I think he might have like an educational background in like broadcast and stuff. I don't remember. I can't remember for the life of me this guy's channel. But he's got no connection whatsoever to like J-Dog or Morden Red or anything like that. But yet he's got these like close sort of like communal connections to like other like metalheads like him. It's just so strange how like, you know, here and there they are and stuff, yet they don't know each other at all. Like it would really surprise me if like J-Dog has ever heard of this guy, or Kid I should say, with like, shit, oh man, it's gonna kill me. Like he does a really good job of just like a one person sort of thing, and he's definitely niche too. But it's crazy though. Just like when you were describing the familial kind of like relations that exist, it always surprises me when there can be something similar, but they don't have what this family over here doesn't have anything to do with this family over here. Like, you know, it's crazy how YouTube does that.
But yeah, once I started getting more familiar with Barry, I you know, commented a lot. And what happened was actually, it was because I think it was then, because oh yeah, the first interaction I had with him was actually him saying that he knew a guy who has a label who would be interested in releasing some of my stuff.
Oh, cool.
But, ironically, this fucking guy turns it down because he already has a label that he's on. Well, of course. But the thing is, I have to mention this in here, so now I can actually send this in the server that I'm in, because I use the whole Discord thing going on there. I've, since my Gore Grind album, my only Gore Grind album ever, which is ironic considering my name is SuicidalGrind on an artist name, which actually I can explain quickly why. It's very quick. I wasn't thinking about like the whole name. The SuicidalGrind is like meant to be read as its own like entity. It's just meant to be like a name, not specifically like Suicidal Grindcore. It actually was just me. I had recently discovered the whole depressive suicidal black metal, and I obviously knew grindcore since forever, but so I just whatever. So I just combined the two, and I was like, that is a cool name, because I wanted something that would maybe get across that I like I wanted a name that I could make practically any genre of like metal, and it wouldn't really seem out of place, because it's, again, it reads as its own like thing. It's not really like meant to be specific. So where was I going with that one? Now I'm drawing a blank here.
Oh, it makes sense though. I'm like following how you like you could use it like generically, but it can still apply to like, I'm signed on to that. Yeah.
Well, I remember how it got there, but I know I was going to get somewhere with the conversation. Oh yeah. I was. It's because I said with the Gore Grind album. My album. Actually, funnily enough, there's a funny little. See here, that one. There we go. Of course, I gotta go get it when I talk about it. This is actually my. I think you can call it my CD debut, my Gore Grind album, Tales of Sick Mind. My first actual like sold hard copy.
Cool.
The reason why artwork is that color and grading is because if not, the label might have gone shadow banned on Bandcamp, and I wasn't trying to have that. So
Oh, really?
The actual image is from. It's very on par with gore grind in terms of like using actual gore photos. It's actually from the Swedish. I don't know what the fuck year it is now because I'm not exactly sitting here memorizing that. But it's actually the Swedish terrorist attack when someone, what was it? Stole like a not like a truck, like a Ford truck, but like one of those big Volvo trucks.
Yeah.
Through the streets of Stockholm. So that's actually the photo of one of the unfortunate kids who had been run over in that incident.
Oh, whoa, shit.
And I have the original image, not that I'm trying to put it on YouTube or anything, but that is like on par with like the gore grind thing of them using actual like images of that, of like incidents in time. I'm not like, I'm of course, I'm into the whole like obscene aspect, but I was kind of like, because the thing is, that is a J-Dog themed gore grind album, actually. Like almost every song except for why did I put it so far away? There you go. Every song except for one of these at least, except for I think it's the song called Like a Knife to the Throat. Ironically, the reason why it's called Like a Knife to the Throat is because this is an instrumental that I wrote when I was sick. Because
shit, you probably felt like that.
Yeah. And then the next instrumental is, in case you haven't give a fuck, is called actually Fuck My Guts. That's how I felt at that time. And the only one that also doesn't have is actually the Abhorrent Mind song, which is a bonus track for this album, which is actually that's not a gore grind track. It's that one's straight up death metal. It's me doing like my impression of like Glenn Benton vocals in Vital Remains and sort of that extreme blasting sound that they have.
Yeah, okay.
I also had a song called Jenny with a exclamation mark, because in the Dismembered documentary they have a whole like part where they have like an inside joke, just I don't know why, but they're yelling the name Jenny. So because they're like Jenny, so I decided to call it that because it's a Dismembered tribute. So I'm gonna use an inside joke. And,
yeah.
And so there's a Dismembered tribute that sounds exactly like Dismembered. I might put it down here now, but so that it was released on the label I'm on called Endogenic Noise Records, which is interesting because they call themselves Noise Records, but a massive majority of the music they release is from electronic artists. I would say like ambient, but it still has like, I think, melodic elements like breakcore, ambient and stuff. They mix a bunch of stuff, but it's an underground label meant for sort of just promoting underground artists, helping them grow. And I just happened to become friends through Twitter when I still used it. It's 2023, so last year, I don't remember when. No, it must have been like March or April, because that's when I released that album through the wait, when was that actually? I don't even remember anymore. But I forget because
because like your most recent like output was a couple months ago, I think, wasn't it?
Well, now it's practically yesterday because I have well, I can get that's a whole another topic.
Oh, well, I'm thinking of okay, all right, I got you. I got confused.
That one I'll actually write down here in my little notepad because I still have it up here. Current project. I'll just type that because I'll remember what I mean by that. Having that text on the screen, try to remember. But yeah, so they sort of just. Oh yeah, I became friends through Twitter with the friend, and eventually, added them on Discord and joined the band label like server and such. And that was when I was doing a different project that I didn't want to release on a label yet. I have actually plans on reissuing that through that label in the future on CD. So because for me, I would personally enjoy a lot to own that one on the physical CD, because that's, I feel, when it technically is the album before my self-titled Suicidal Grind album, but I wasn't being entirely serious. It was kind of a weird mix between serious songs and completely just, you know, just jokes going on and stuff, just fun stuff, and well, some is more vulgar and stuff in that vein as well, but more in the fun vein. And but the album after that, which I called Michibiku, because that is actually it has almost too much lore for me to explain, but it's essentially related to literally a dream I had, where that word Michibiku that I had never heard before was said in a dream. I literally wrote a whole side story as well to accompany this album. Like, it's a very story-driven album, partially because some of the tracks, like once you get past like track 3, I start writing about like anything I feel like. But it was like my first proper serious album in a good while, and I had a proper concept start to finish, and that album for me, it feels like the start of me actually making like proper series, like actually music that I was putting genuine thought into for every single song, for like putting it like that. Because on the previous album I had a song called Hot Dog.
That's cool.
With 3 exclamation marks, by the way, in case.
Oh.
Because that was the mix, and it's ironic because on the same song I have a song called Diary of Depression that is 16 minutes long, and I dive into the deepest, darkest parts of my life on the same album as Hot Dog.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, but that's sort of
did that name, like, so that you got that name because like that's what the mix kind of felt like? Is that what inspired the name?
Well, what name?
Like for like Hot Dog, like was like, did you name the song that because like for some reason like the mix kind of like felt like that, like it was appropriate or something?
I have a story. I was literally just really enjoying eating hot dogs at that time.
Oh, all right. Cool.
So I wrote a song. I don't know why, but that's just how I felt at the time.
Oh, why not?
So, I mean, it's kind of like you're going to McDonald's a lot recently, so you write a song called Hamburger. Yeah, but
that's awesome.
But yeah, so Michibiku is the start of like proper music being written, and then I obviously go to the J-Dog themed album, but and a lot of it's just me just, you know, trying to what I did for the Gorgon album actually is something that I believe it gets maybe a bit unique, but not quite, because what I did was I tried to dial into tone on the guitar. I say this because there's a specific difference between what the actual tone I'm trying to copy is. I tried to dial in the guitar tone on the guitar that sounded like the bass sound for Mortician. So
wow.
With so like the thick like just rumbly fuzzy sound, but for the guitar.
Yeah.
Now I think it sounds maybe a little more still in the HM2, because that's what I use like a preset for like the HM2, and like made it more dark and bassy and stuff to match a little more. But it's different from like, you're not gonna listen to that and hear Dismember, but so it's still gonna sound like gore grind, and very like, it's the kind of gore grind that's almost that people would probably even call gore noise. I would say a very massive influence, even though I wrote riffs in the styles of like Hemorrhage and so on, like that, and even wrote a riff in the style of Exhumed as well. So, but the whole like vibe is much more similar to a Last Days of Humanity in the sense of the pitch vocals and the whole noise aspect of it with blasting.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so it's much more similar, except I don't have the St. Anger snare on a drum preset, because I used the same actually drum VST since my first album, like 2019 or something. my first actual album, because I had the EP before that I call an album, but it's not an album. It's just 4 songs and EP, and then it's also only for the last 2 songs, because that's when I found the drum VST called the MT Power Kit 2, and it's ironically a completely free drum program, and it sounds the way it does today still. So I've used it ever since late 2019, and obviously I've been able. I think the case is that I've been able to. I think the reasoning why it might have sounded a little more not convincing back then compared to now is because back then I was still using the guitar tone I was using then. Because now, unlike, for example, I'll take my first proper that death metal sound that I associate with when I say, whenever SuicidalGrind does death metal, this is what it sounds like. The start of that was my single that I did for just a compilation. That was the first thing I released with the label. Like, I wrote a song for the compilation they were putting out at the time. I was, oh, cool. Tribute before I put out a proper album with them called Misanthropic Heresy. And I believe in my head I was trying to go for a combination of something. I was thinking deicide, but it ended up sounding more, probably I'm trying to think what it even sounds like, the song, because I haven't listened to it in a while, I have to admit, so I'm not exactly sure. But I know that there is later on a part that sounds straight up like Cryptopsy, like Lord Worm era, with the high screams and long screams, because I think that was when I started delving into that, because I don't know if that was before or after, but at some point around that time, I did my cover of the infamous, what the fuck is that song called? The Lord Worm scream. That was 26, 27 seconds. I forget. It's Open Face Surgery. That one.
Wait. Oh, I'm thinking Slit Your Guts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Open Face Surgery. It has the infamously long Lord Worm scream, and I guess, I don't know, for some reason I got interested in trying it. So I obviously at first it wasn't exactly going well, because I hadn't done anything I had done some long high screams, but they were maybe 12 seconds more than 27 or something like that. And now I have a record, I forget what it is, but I know it's 30 seconds at least now.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm actually
that's really serious.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking at Lord, I started by taking inspiration from Lord Worm and then doing more. But the ironic thing is, live he actually did do a proper 30-second screen for that Open Face Surgery, because he would I mean, Lord Worm was fucking crazy live. I mean, he literally ate worms. That's why he got the name. So
is that where that I wasn't aware of that. Oh my god! Wow.
That's another thing. It's so that you just have to kind of love the guy, because he's one of those. That's one of those crazy metal guys your mom's gonna tell you about at the show, but really is just a vocalist on stage. So yeah, Misanthropic Heresy really started me approaching more the sound I would get later, but the Abhorrent Mind is even closer. And then I do my album. That the funny thing is, I didn't realize this until recently. I originally, after the album called Tales of the Sick Mind, did call this album Forbidden Idea. And then I released some songs, and I typed that in the description when I typed the album name. And I did the first track, Devoted Alcoholic, which ironically I think that's still one of my most that's still one of my most impressive vocal performances, because I did the high Rob Halford style screams with the harsh added distortion on the vocals, Painkiller-ish.
Yeah.
Those type of high screams on top of the typical yelling thrash vocal, in the vein of a Tom Araya. I'm sure you've been quite acquainted with that, but
sure.
Then I did a ironically well-timed song for the second track. I called it Murder in the... Did I tell Murder or Murders? That's one of the things I don't remember. The thing is, I could walk right there right now and get a physical vinyl copy of that, because that's the one I actually got that of.
You pressed it on vinyl? That's awesome.
Yeah, we do. It's like a limited, and that's still available and shit. But I would recommend the CD. Say like that, because it's a small label, so they use the company they use, and it's like a company that it's one of those cheap ones, and whatever. But what was I even going at there?
Just done as like a vanity project sort of thing.
Well, they have a pressing plant for the vinyls. It's just that the pressing plant isn't really that quality. But
okay.
I think it's just cool that I can pull that out and hold it in my hands.
I agree. Yeah.
Even though there's like no inserts or anything like that, just I have a vinyl of my own record.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
A CD of my own record, and I plan on actually getting a CD of that album and eventually a CD player. I don't have one, ironically, but
shit.
Yeah, but because because of the fact that I got into like the whole vinyl thing with the Iron Maiden, I got my dad's. He lended me his player because he doesn't listen to vinyl anymore, and so I was talking about Forbidden. So I think I called it Murders in the Mosque, and the thing is I called it that, and I wrote it about what I was writing about, and then obviously I released it, and then because I always release the song as I finish writing it and continue until the last song is done, and then I compile all the files when I feel like it and send it to the label owner, and then they put it up eventually. So yes, I do put up all the songs before the album is actually like fully released. But for example, like I can get to that later because it's another topic again. But I will release it officially later on. But I like to put out the songs as I go, because there's an off chance that my computer just decides to go to sleep forever, and the files are gone. So
sure, yeah.
So I immediately make that video, put the description. So I didn't realize this because I got a comment actually from just a random that stumbled upon my song. I thought it was cool. He enjoyed the song. But he said something like, "Oh, good song and like well timed" or something. And then not until later did I find out what the world news of the time was, as I had released that song about something completely unrelated. Now, obviously, not completely unrelated, since it's written about a similar case, but not about that.
Like the Tarrant guy, the like Breton guy or something like that. Was it that one?
I don't know what I was thinking about at the time, but I know I was thinking about something.
Yeah.
I don't think I wrote about, like, for example, I didn't write about the new CLN thing or anything like that, because I would have probably called it something else in that case, because because that's a more specific case. But I think I was just thinking in general, because that was like a talk of the time, I think, maybe even outside of the whole war stuff. That's like a talk.
Yeah.
So I released that. I think I still call it Forbidden Idea. And then, well, you know what? I'm going to have to pull out the vinyl, because I don't even know my own fucking track listing. Here we go. There you go.
Wow! Oh, man.
Here we
It's
go.
over here.
Finally. It's on the
Wow,
vinyl.
look at that.
Fucking shit. And then the back, and this is
wow.
all, and I designed these myself, the whole design.
That's gorgeous. Oh, man.
Of course, the third song is called "It Hurts When I Wipe."
That's good.
That's a song I wrote about hemorrhoids. I don't remember if that's when I started calling this album Forbidden Mind, because that was the thing. I didn't notice this until recently. I was going to call this album Forbidden Idea, then I ended up calling it Forbidden Mind. Now, the funny thing is about this is the fact that I already released something right before that called Tales of the Sick Mind, and now I get a Forbidden Mind. And then the next album gets called Paranormal Mind, which becomes now a
cool.
trilogy, the Mind trilogy. And even funnier is when I realized, even more recently, is that the Michibiku album was gonna be called A Journey into the Mind of the Unknown. So it almost happened 4 albums in a row.
Oh wow. That's like it makes me think of like I don't know, it makes me think of like the Morbid Angel discography, you know what I mean? Where it's like each
they have
like
the alphabet and it's connected.
Yeah.
Then the next song,
but that's cool though. You did it like kind of by mistake and everything. That's cool.
Yeah, at first, until I got to Paranormal Mind, that one's intentional, because at that point it's like, well, I made 2, I might as well make it a trilogy, because everything comes in freeze when it's good.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Except, I guess, nipples.
Oh, that's true.
But the next song is called Being Sick is Gay, which is another song I wrote about being sick. Obviously, the whole like title is influenced by the whole anal cunt thing, but the song style and lyrics are like completely different. I don't even remember what I've had envisioned in my head. It's like a kind of rock and roll-ish hardcore punk thing going on, but it's like it's hard for me to really know what to call it actually. But that song for me has one of my favorite choruses that I ever wrote, because the only chorus I ever wrote that to me is catchy.
Okay.
because I have that like for some reason I got that like vocal timing that just worked. And with the lyrics being quite passionate, since I wasn't exactly enjoying being sick when I wrote it, that is why that chorus is. But I mean, this to me is where everything shifted, and that's gonna happen later in the track listing. Why? So this is one of my favorite albums because of, well, almost every song. Because here's where also, ever since Devoted Alcoholic, that I really like grasped like the whole thing with putting together a guitar tone that works in the mix and actually making the mix sound like a mix and not just a mix match sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then we got a song called Miku Goes to the Liquor Store, Hatsune Miku that being, and then in parentheses, this is related somehow, the Nunslaughter After Party. So it's like multiple references, because obviously going to the liquor store, I was probably thinking about Trailer Park Boys at the time, because I watched that one late as fuck when it was already over and done, and the whole thing with the actor for Jim Leahy being gone. I watched that late as fuck, but that's my top favorite show ever now. So
I did something really similar with a show in Australia.
Oh.
It was like kind of a similar idea, but it's called Housos, and it's just like, and yeah, I didn't discover it till like later on, and like, so yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that name. And then the next one is called My Cat Likes Gore Grind, featuring actually Nick on a guitar solo, which is actually, this is going into the Trey Asig-Toph lore, because this solo, I told him to play Lava. If you have ever heard of that when talking about Trey, he obviously has the whole thing where he has 2 different types of solos. One is acid and one is lava. And what I've accumulated in my brain through much trial and error, but despite Trey attempting to say that it's just a silly thing, is actually that there is one consistency that any acid solo is like a Chapel of Ghouls, just when he does the guitar break, specifically the live version at Roskilde, where it's just fucking, on the guitar, the insane guitar solo, and just playing completely chromatic notes. But of course, when Trey does it, it sounds awesome. And that is the acid, which you can sort of understand, because he also says like acid terror and stuff like that. So like, yeah, complete acid, you can understand how that's the super shreddy stuff. And then lava it's usually this 90% of the time is when it's like a more reverby, slow guitar solo, but it can still have some insane shredding.
Okay, yeah, all right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could, yeah.
And but the most like the for example, I'm gonna have to call it the lava of lava, like the definitive lava type of solo is like when he does a bunch of slow reverby like dive bombs.
Oh yeah, okay.
That makes
Like,
sense essentially because lava it comes slow and yeah, and
but it still like crash at the end and everything. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and so that song I actually wrote influenced by a Japanese gore grind band that I found through a guy who plays drums in his underwear on Instagram called
Cool.
Viscera Infest. So, I mean, it's an interesting way of finding the band because he uploads a bunch of Instagram reels of him playing like the songs, of course, and they even have like a whole thing. It's like I find this random band and they have like a whole thing, and I fall in love with them musically and because of their whole shtick, because that is something that's always cool when a band has like a thing. They have like a thing called the cockroach mosh, where a song they have is where people lay on their backs and flail like a cockroach. And it's a type of mosh, according which is I think that's just like it's good to have a type of thing like that, especially in gore grind, where it's definitely helpful to have like something going on, because gore grind is easily like oversaturated with like similar and stuff. And then I wrote a very inspiring. Somewhere in here, this album, the vinyl had to cut one song, which was the song that I believed at the time wasn't my favorite on the album, my least favorite. But now I'm pretty much all the songs I love them, because at the time I guess I was feeling like that artist thing you do when you start feeling unhappy about your song, but then you start realizing, oh, it's not bad, it's good.
Yeah. Maybe you listened to it too much at the time or something.
Well, I think it was more like I wasn't happy when I did the writing process, but I was like, I'm gonna finish this song because I think it's like still cool, because I have like a whole it starts with like maybe a minute and a half long like shredding guitar solo, similar to like in the vein of like Eruption, but much more chaotic and like death metal.
Wow.
So it's called Chocolate Milk Volcano, and it's actually it's related to being a lactose intolerant and drinking chocolate milk. It's called like that. And that one's actually influenced by X Japan in the sense of riffing and the guitar solo. Because I do a very similar like melodic dual lead after the guitar solo to their style. But yeah, I don't know when that happens on the album, when that song comes, because it's not on the track listing here. Then we get Mike Browning, obviously the original, well, technically not original, but we'll call him original because he was on Abomination of Desolation. Morbid Angel was drum and vocals. Mike Browning, he gets drunk and writes a masterpiece, literally what I called, and I there's a lyric I don't even remember. It's something like I might be drunk and high on coke, but at least I'm not a fucking liberal. And then there is a rare occurrence on this album, because this was me going back to like, because I did do it with the Gore Grind album, but I wanted to continue that with this album, because what happened with Michibiku, me writing super serious songs and actually some of them being very in-depth details about, well, everyone has them, but at the time, stuff that was killing me on the inside, basically. That whole writing process of Michibiku as a whole album was like, inside of me, I was killing myself with that album, but when I finally, get to hear it and the obviously added attachment I have to the album, to the fact that it's also related to a dream, and then there's a bunch of other real life stories mixed in and stuff like that, and writing about stuff that I see around me and stuff and such. It obviously has that deep connection. So with that album having been pretty straining to write, even though I did the Gorgon album, I mean, that one I wrote pretty much every song in like maybe 30 minutes, because I mean the songs aren't longer than maybe like 1:30 or something like that.
Wow, what?
Yeah, because this gore grind, it tends to be short. But what I was saying
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that is lengthy
is
for.
this shows a rare serious track on this album because I was trying. But at this point, I've written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 songs that were me just having light-hearted fun. Now, Murders in the Mosque was more serious, but I pretty much let loose on Devoted Alcoholic and felt really good after that. And of course, I was really happy because I had pretty much just released Tales of the Sick Mind on CD and eventually vinyl as well for the label. So I was pumped to make some more music. So at that point, I was already relieved, but I wanted to continue just having fun and writing about whatever I feel like. And then this is another reason why I'm not on Twitter anymore, because that's good. That if I go on Twitter again, I'm gonna start writing more songs like this that are serious and things that piss me off. But and this is a true story, and this is like one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen personally. Someone say that they did and admit to. The song is called Anti-Vegan Euphemism because I went on Twitter one day and decided I was gonna see some, I don't know, pictures, probably porn, because that happens on Twitter, and some funny videos. Cool. Someone might be, or there might be some people arguing, wasting their time on the internet. But no, this time I saw a post, and the reason why I wrote this song is because I was physically like disgusted. I read this post from a person who was a vegan, and that. And the post was saying that they were going to go. I don't know if it was they were going to go or they had went, but we'll say they were going to go and literally put their cat down because it wasn't vegan.
Oh.
Like at first I read this and I'm like, my brain it explodes. It's just boom.
Yeah.
Like what am I? Like I think it was the first thing I saw on my timeline too. So I'm like reading, like opening Twitter, maybe even in the morning. Like what the hell is this greeting? Thanks for the good morning, I guess.
Right.
So I wrote my song and I was very passionate about those lyrics.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And of course,
I just looked at the clock. I'm supposed to meet my parents at 9, like around the corner for dinner at my sister's. Oh shit! I feel bad. I didn't know we'd go this long.
I didn't know either, actually.
Yeah. No. Oh man, yeah, I feel bad. I wasn't paying attention to the clock. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh man. This has been awesome, though. Yeah. Honest to God, I love just chopping it up with you and everything. Yeah. Oh man.
Well, I guess I'll keep it short. I have a song called Carl Sanders of Nile. He goes to Egypt to battle Anubis. It sounds like Nile. And I have Frozen Sludge, a very fitting autopsy tribute, because they like to sing about sewers and stuff. And then I have the title track, Forbidden Mind. The reason why it's the most important track and why that is my favorite album, because that's when I started taking influence from Malevolent Creation. And for some reason, me taking influence from Malevolent Creation led to me finally developing like a sound that to me was, yes, you can hear the Malevolent Creation, but it's unique enough to where it's like, that is, for me, the SuicidalGrind death metal sound. And that's, I think, pretty good way to end this.
Oh, man. I wonder if I've never heard an opinion, like a definitive opinion, but I wonder if I like the Poser Malevolent Creation album, like Fine Art of Murder. Like, that's probably, like, my favorite.
I don't know about
and
that one's got Brett Hoffman, and it's got one of my favorite songs, like that little... Like, they almost delve into, like, an industrial thing. I believe it's on the title track. And I bet I know what you mean. And like, that's kind of why I was, like, thinking that. Because, like, I could see somebody
saying like, wow, there's like a little bit of, I don't know if that's a keyboard that they use to like
Yeah.
make that like,
Yeah, I think
it's probably like keyboard.
and
Like I could
yeah,
see somebody being
I'll
like,
I'll
oh, that's like
I'll
them
I'll
being
I'll, uh,
industrial.
I'll keep it really short. Next to it was the style of content. I was gonna say that you have a cool, unique style of content. You like
Oh,
you have
thank you.
like it's obviously there's people who do similar content, but when I watch your videos, there's an essence there that's pretty. I think. In my opinion, unique to your videos, which is why I keep coming back and commenting.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thanks. That's
course.
enormous to hear that. You
Hey,
know,
I mean, when I saw you comment on my channel, all the nice stuff and stuff, and of course, especially so when you commented when I was making the videos about my cat and stuff, like,
oh yeah,
I felt honored. I was like, damn, this guy actually, watches my stuff and such. So yeah, and of course, like I can tell you're a genuine dude, and I can admit something like that.
Oh, I think like when you find somebody like on YouTube, that you really like and everything, and then you see them in a place that's like it's very raw, very sensitive. It's like there's like a yearning to want to reach out because you want that person to feel better and stuff, because you like them and everything. Like,
yeah, and of course, the way I found you was because I was looking if there was any good opinions on the 6 Feet Under album, because I was obviously quite blown away when I was going into it with a mindset that, oh, it's just gonna be funny. Then I hear No Nothing In Grade, I'm blown away. And then I hear the album, wow. And then I actually
I know I didn't get that.
I specifically looked up like a review, and then I see your channel, and it's like I think it was like I don't know if you directly said it was good in the title, but I think it sounded like maybe there was a hope.
Well, I feel bad about it now because looking back, like I will admit I was a little bit like afraid at first to play the album up as much as what was in my heart, because I was only at the time familiar with Haunted and Warpath. So, if things had changed very drastically in the rest of the catalog, I didn't want to be trying to make any kind of parallels or anything that were like inaccurate with 6 Feet Under's just, I don't know, style and career up to that point. I didn't want to like sound like I knew what I was talking about when like I really didn't. So I played it pretty safe as far as my like opinion went. But the truth of the matter after the fact is I was really into the album. I mean, I still continue to be, and that's why it was just such like a revelation, because I was like, the first 2 reviews I saw for it were negative, and I was like, I don't understand like the negativity. It's like, that's cool, they can have their opinion. I'm just failing to comprehend where they're coming up with that stuff. And then I thought about it, I was like, oh wait, maybe they just don't like Chris, maybe
I think a lot of it is because of them not liking the person, so they kind of get like a hate boner thing going on. It's like hate reviewing, and just I don't even know. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the reviews like on Metal Archives are from people who didn't even like listen, but they just typed up something like because they think it sounds exactly like Blood of the Zombie or whatever from the last album and such and such. But yeah, and I guess I'll just try to explain this shortly as well with the current project, since you were curious. So I did the Forbidden. No, that was earlier, but I did the Paranormal Mind release back in the summer, I think, and that was a few months ago. And then tail end of the summer, I started writing on what I call it the current album, because I'm releasing it in early January officially. It's done.
Oh, shit.
And there's gonna be bonus tracks that haven't been officially released before as well. Like,
cool.
Like a Deicide tribute called Kill Bob Larson. If you know that interview, you'll know what that is quoting. It's quoting the lyrics. And actually used the Glenn Benton lyrics that he spoke, but I had to change some stuff to actually be able to sing them in Glenn Benton's style and rhythm.
Oh, wow.
Because I do the whole like the triplet Deicide, because that's to me is the Deicide sound. When they do like the triplet sound, like once upon the cross, and I guess they have that as well during the whatever. But yeah, so then I write actually a sequel to my second album called The Dark Tribute, this one called The Dark Tribute Part 2, because I wanted to go back to making a just lighthearted, fun album again. And what I did is it's every song is just a tribute to something. In this case, it was much more a tribute in the terms of writing in a style of a specific band, and I had some lyrical ideas that was related to stuff. Like, for example, the first song is called, I think, Violate or Violated, which is literally a direct song written about my buddy Mike Violate. So because he has because he has his like own, like, it has like an online persona that he, you know, even though he kind of doesn't really make, he doesn't have a lot of videos on his own channel related to like his persona, like his character that is Mike Violate. But he has that character that I wrote a song about, because I fucking, you know, that guy's fucking, that's one of those buds that I want to keep him around, you know.
Oh, but, yeah.
And then I wrote some like a later song is a direct musical tribute to Midnight, because that's a speed metal band I really started loving recently because I got into them. And the actual lyrics of that one is called the title is called I Am the Liquor, directly fucking Trailer Park Boys related, and so on and so forth. And then I did I think that's my like the last song I wrote for the album. That's not gonna be the last song due to bonus tracks on the official release. That is probably like my magnum opus in terms of like actual reason. The reason why I say Forbidden Mind is because that's when I started finally doing my own proper style that I think I can consistently write in, instead of that whenever I feel like, because I still write other genres and such. The last song, I call it The Kraken, of course, writing about that historical creature, which actually, even like Googling, it turns out that it's very highly likely to be true. in the sense that there was most likely a massive squid in the sea that tormented people who dared sail in its path. And of course, my one of my favorite things to drink Coke with right now, I'm not trying to actually drink, is actually called the Kraken. It's a rum.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah,
it's licorice flavored. I love licorice, the black licorice kind, even the salty stuff. But yeah, so the Dark Tribute Part 2, it's releasing in early January. That is technically current project, going to release officially early January. Like, I hope cool. The first week. But even just like last week maybe, or either last week or week before, I started another project, and this one's themed after the Japanese. I don't call it a religion, I call it a belief, because it doesn't really play itself off as a religion. It's more of a belief, because it's not in the traditional sense of like worshiping a god. They have a bunch of goddesses and gods. The Shinto side of Japan, like, and traditional fucking whatever the hell. So I have a new concept album that's gonna be in the works, and I actually have the second song in my head. I just haven't gotten to actually started recording and stuff like that. Like, I have the riff and such, like, for the intro.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, wow. So you got like a volume of stuff coming out next year.
Well, that one's probably gonna be an extensive process, which is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's gonna come out next year, maybe like during like late spring, probably. That's what I'm guessing, because I try to keep some time in between, and yeah. But I think that's a good time. I'm not gonna keep you hostage anymore.
Oh. No, that's cool. Thank you so much, Tim. You know, it's like just like I said, it's great to be able to chop up with somebody, you know, virtually in real time, and that's kind of like an extension of, you know, what I set out to do through YouTube, which was just connect and, you know, kind of like propagate myself out there and just take in the scene again and everything. And now, as a bonus, stuff like this. So I'm
Yeah.
very, very grateful for you, wanting me to converse with you and everything,
Yeah, of course. And I mean, the feelings mutual for me because I think you're a cool guy and such and such. It's just based on the videos and stuff as well.
Ah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, Hal, I'll probably connect with you, offline and everything in a little while and stuff. And yeah, Kim, thank you so very much again. And I have nothing but eternal hails, love, and respect, man.
Yeah, and I'm sure we will get to sometime follow up for a part 2.
Absolutely, and I look forward to it. I genuinely do.
You just give them some time, some weight, and then they'll want one.
Cool.
I hope so, at least. But yeah, thank you for that one.
Okay, see ya, man.
Yeah.
Good night, Kim.
All right. There you go. 2 hours, 44 minutes. An interview with none other than Joe of Concrete Spew. I've been SuicidalGrind. You've been watching my goddamn channel. Fucking stay hoagies.